The last man sentenced to death by the Roman Senate waited 9 days before anyone showed up to carry it out. Outside his cell, the night air was thick with sweat and ash from the day's braziers. The stone floor beneath him felt cold and unyielding as he lay there, hearing only the distant creak of wooden beams in the barracks. What if you were that last man? What if you had to endure those 9 days alone, wondering why your sentence wasn't carried out? If you're listening to this to fall asleep, that's exactly why I make these. Drop a comment and tell me where you are and what time it is. I read every single one. Each nightfall brings its own stories of the brutal daily reality in life within the Roman legion, a world filled with fear, duty, and relentless discipline. The earthy scent of dawn clings to your nostrils, thick and heavy with the morning's first breaths. The air carries not only the subtle aroma of wet earth, but also a hint of the night's cooking fires, now just smoldering embers casting shadows on the stone walls around you. Your cloak is draped over one shoulder, weight settling heavily against your skin as if it were made from lead rather than wool. The legionary barracks are silent save for the distant caw of a crow, its voice slicing through the early morning chill and reminding you that nothing here sleeps much. You shuffle awake in the dim light filtering through the cracks between shutters, finding yourself in one of many small rooms shared by dozens more men like yourselves, men who have known only this rough existence for years. Your hands are gritty with sleep powder, the white ash spread out on a wooden tray just outside your door. It's a peculiar sensation, the way it clings to your skin despite its lightness. You dip 2 fingers into the shallow bowl and swipe them across one cheek, then down to your chin, leaving a smudged path of ash. The room is cramped but oddly cozy in this pre-dawn quiet, too warm for comfort with the windows still closed. Your blanket is thin and scratchy against your back as you pull it tighter around yourself, grateful for its warmth after that long night's rest. You glance at the wooden frame above the door, a crude depiction of a legionary standing tall, his armor gleaming in the faint light. Outside, the courtyard begins to stir. The sound of muffled voices and clanking metal grow louder with each passing moment, echoing off the stone walls like distant thunder. It's almost hypnotic, the steady rhythm of men preparing for another day filled with endless toil and discipline. You stretch your legs, feeling them cramp from too many hours in this small space last night. The floor is hard-packed earth underfoot, cold against bare skin as you move. You pull on a pair of sandals, their leather straps creaking softly as they adjust around your feet. They are old and worn. You've had these since before the war began. As you rise to your full height, the morning light finally begins to break through the shutters, casting long shadows across the room. You feel the weight of a metal pot in one hand, a simple cooking vessel passed down from many soldiers before you. Its shape is rough-hewn but sturdy. It will hold the day's breakfast rations. You step out into the courtyard, the smell of burning wood mingling with sweat and stale air as legionaries move about their early morning routines. Some are already at work, mending armor or sharpening swords in preparation for yet another brutal training session later today. Others shuffle towards a makeshift table where a small pot is simmering over an open fire. The first rays of sunlight dance across the courtyard floor, casting shimmering light that seems almost magical after so many dark mornings. The air is crisp and full of promise, another day to endure, but also another chance for survival in this harsh world under Roman rule. You approach a small group gathered around the cooking pot, their faces drawn and weary from long nights on cold stone floors. They are legionaries like you, brothers in arms sharing this meager breakfast together before facing yet more challenges of the day ahead. The pot is filled with what passes for porridge, a thick mixture of barley grains boiled until mushy and then mixed with some kind of vegetable, likely cabbage or turnip, given its earthy taste. It's served in small wooden bowls that you dip into, the spoon clanging softly against the side as it does so. As you dig your spoon into the bowl, a sharp pang hits you, a reminder of how long it has been since proper food was on any real scale, how much this simple meal means after days and weeks without such comforts. The taste is bitter but satisfying. Barley can only do so much to fill empty stomachs in these harsh times. The men around you are quiet, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and grim determination as they eat slowly, savoring each mouthful like it's the best meal they've ever had, because on some level, for them, it is. The porridge warms your insides, filling what little space remains in your stomach. You try to keep up with their pace, swallowing hard and forcing down another spoonful before turning towards a small pot of water set out beside the table. It's not much, just enough to rinse your bowl clean so you can share it later, but each sip is welcome relief from the day ahead. Outside the courtyard walls, soldiers are already assembling for morning drills, the clink of armor and the thud of sandals on packed earth creating a rhythmic beat that echoes through the halls. You join them, feeling the weight of your sword belt pulling at you as you slip it into place around your waist, another reminder of the never-ending toil awaiting. The sun climbs higher in the sky, its warmth slowly beginning to penetrate the chill of dawn. The courtyard fills with more legionaries now, some carrying rations, others washing their gear while water splashes against stone. There's a sense here that everyone is trying to make ready for what comes next, an army on the move, perhaps, or just another day of hard labor and mind-numbing routine. You watch as one man pulls out a small pouch filled with dried fruit, apples, pears mostly, and passes them around. They are precious few in number, but each piece is eagerly devoured like manna from heaven. The act serves to break the monotony momentarily, creating brief moments of camaraderie among those who share these meager joys together. As you take a bite of your own fruit, a tart apple, your mind wanders over what lies ahead today, the endless march towards whatever destiny may hold for each one of us in this legion. The weight of it all settles heavy on your chest, but there's also something comforting about being part of such a vast machine, a community bound by shared hardship and purpose. And so you sit there among others like yourself, simple men trying to make sense of the absurdity of life under Roman rule through small victories and fleeting moments of connection. The day stretches out before you like an endless expanse filled with promise and peril, but for now, here in this courtyard at dawn's first light, it feels almost bearable. The smell of cooking continues to linger around you, barley porridge still simmering over the fire even as more soldiers arrive to take their place. It serves as a constant reminder that no matter how brutal things may be, there is always hope for something better on the horizon, however distant or illusory it might seem right now. And so you find yourself drawn back into the routine of daily life, dipping your spoon into yet another bowl of barley porridge, savoring its bitter taste as a reminder that even in this brutal world, small moments of human connection and shared struggle can provide some semblance of meaning amidst endless toil. As you re-emerge from your slumber, the first rays of dawn cast a dim light through the grimy windows, barely piercing the thick mist that clung to the stone walls. The Legion's barracks were alive with groans and muffled curses as men stirred from their meager bedding, shredded cloaks spread over rough wooden bunks. You find yourself in one such bed, your tunic already damp from sweat. A soldier beside you grumbles, "At least we didn't get the barley again today," his voice a mix of resignation and relief. A quick glance around reveals the grim reality. Men huddled together for warmth, their faces gaunt with fatigue, eyes hollowed by long nights of restless sleep. The room is thick with the scent of damp earth and sweat, punctuated occasionally by the stench of unwashed bodies. You push yourself up from your bed, stretching aching muscles that seem to protest each movement. The first task of the day, bowl in hand, is making your way down the stone steps leading into the courtyard where breakfast is served. The air here is no less oppressive. It carries with it the faint smell of cooking meat and the acrid tang of smoke from the nearby hearths. As you move through this sea of faces, some still sleeping on benches or the ground, others waking up to begin their day, a sense of camaraderie emerges despite the hardships. Upon reaching the courtyard's edge, you join the queue for breakfast, a process that seems almost ritualistic in its repetition. The Legion cooks, grizzled veterans themselves, stand behind large braziers where they prepare meals over coals and charcoal. Today's fare is no exception: barley porridge, served from huge iron cauldrons suspended over open flames. You dip your spoon into the steaming liquid, feeling a pang of bitterness as it clings to the metal before sliding down your throat. The taste is familiar yet repulsive. Each mouthful serves not so much as nourishment, but as a reminder of the relentless toil and harsh existence that awaits you throughout the day. You share glances with nearby soldiers, men who have become more than mere comrades, forming bonds forged through shared suffering, and together you savor this momentary connection. Breakfast over, you return to your barracks where other tasks await. Men move in unison, carrying buckets of water from the communal well or dragging logs into position for the next day's work. You help load supplies onto mules and horses, feeling the familiar strain as they begin their daily trek towards distant fields or construction sites. The sound of marching feet echoes through the camp, a rhythmic beat that seems to set the tempo for your entire existence. Throughout these routines, you find yourself constantly reminded of the brutality of this world. Brutal training sessions under watchful eyes, harsh punishments meted out without mercy, and the ever-present threat of death or injury. Yet amidst it all, small moments of human connection persist: shared stories around campfires at night, laughter during rare leisure hours spent outside duties. One evening, as you sit by a fire with fellow soldiers recounting tales from home, discussing plans for when this relentless cycle finally ends, if ever, an elderly veteran shares wisdom passed down through generations. Soldier, remember that even in these dregs of existence, there is still strength to be found within each other. Hold on to hope, it's the only thing left. These words linger as you drift off into sleep once more, your mind filled with both despair and resolve. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but for now, you are content knowing that even in this brutal world, small acts of humanity can provide a semblance of meaning amidst endless toil. The warmth of a fire crackling softly beside you seeps into your skin through the thin cloak wrapped around your shoulders. The smell of roasting meat and freshly ground wheat fills the air, mingled with the earthy scent of wood smoke from the flames dancing in front of you. Your hands grip the thick wooden handle of an oiled spear, its weight a familiar comfort as it rests against your side. You are among a group of soldiers, huddled around the central fire pit that serves not only as warmth, but also as a focal point for sharing stories and planning tomorrow's tasks. The night is cool, with just enough starlight to cast shadows across the dirt floor, making everything seem larger in this dim light. Your eyes, adjusted now to the dark, catch fleeting glimpses of faces, broad, suntanned cheeks etched by time and weather, hands roughened from years of hard labor. Tonight is different though. Tonight, you can feel a tension among your comrades that hasn't been there before. The usual stories are fewer, more subdued, as if everyone knows something you don't yet understand. Your mind wanders to the day's march, feet crunching on gravel under a relentless sun, the taste of stale rations in your mouth, and the constant hum of commands ringing through your ears. As night deepens, the fire casts long shadows that seem almost alive, stretching and twisting like they have minds of their own. The crackle of burning wood is punctuated by occasional snorts or grunts from nearby men who are too tired to speak much beyond a single word here and there. You catch yourself stealing glances at your fellow legionaries, men you've marched with for years, sharing everything but knowing so little about each other. The weight of the spear handle feels heavier in your hand now, almost as if it's communicating some hidden message through its smooth wood surface. You realize that tonight is different because tomorrow will bring new challenges. But right here and now, among these same men who face those challenges with you every day, there's a small comfort. A woman steps forward from the shadows, her presence drawing everyone's gaze. She moves gracefully despite the rough sandals on her feet, carrying a wooden bowl filled to the brim with something that smells like honey and dates, simple provisions for these hard times, but always appreciated by soldiers who know the value of sweetness in their diet. "Tonight's special," she says softly, offering you some from the bowl. The warmth of gratitude rises within you as your fingers close around her gift, a small act of humanity amidst endless toil. You take a tentative bite and savor the burst of sweet flavor on your tongue. The taste is both familiar and new. As everyone takes their share, there's an unusual silence that settles over the group, almost reverent in its stillness. No one speaks for a moment, allowing themselves this brief reprieve from constant chatter and labor. The weight of the day's weariness seems to lift slightly as you sit with your comrades, sharing more than just food. The woman who brought the honey dates steps closer again, her face illuminated by the firelight. "Tomorrow will bring new challenges," she says gently. Her voice is soft, but carries a hint of authority and wisdom that makes everyone listen intently. But for now, you are content knowing that even in this brutal world, small acts of humanity can provide a semblance of meaning amidst endless toil. These words hang heavily in the air around you as the woman turns away and heads back into the shadows where she came from, leaving behind a lingering sense of purpose. You feel your comrades shifting slightly beside you, men who have faced countless trials together, but tonight seems different somehow. The night feels colder now that her voice has faded, despite the fire still crackling brightly nearby. A small breeze stirs through the canopy above, rustling leaves and carrying with it distant sounds of nocturnal creatures venturing out under cover of darkness. The scent of smoke from your own campfire lingers heavily in the air, smoke mixed with sweat and earth, a constant reminder that this is real life lived at its most elemental. Your spear handle feels even heavier now, as if holding onto it offers some small measure of comfort against uncertainty. You run your fingers along its length, feeling the grooves where countless hands have gripped similarly over years past. Hands like yours, burdened with responsibility and duty, but also capable of something more profound. The firelight dances across your face in soft flickers, casting shadows that make you feel both visible and invisible at once. You look around slowly, taking in each man's profile, their faces etched by time and hardship, their eyes reflecting the weight of what they carry on a daily basis, but also holding onto something indescribable. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, this is true. But for tonight, you are content knowing that even amidst this brutal world, small acts of humanity can provide some semblance of meaning among endless toil. The realization settles deeply within your bones, a reminder not just of hardship endured, but also of connections forged and sustained despite the trials. As the night wears on, the fire continues its slow dance across the darkness, throwing brief shadows that seem almost alive in their movement. You sit there for a long while longer, letting the weight of reality sink in, realizing that perhaps even this small moment of shared humanity matters more than you ever imagined it could. The world outside may be harsh and unforgiving, but within these walls, some semblance of hope still persists. Finally, as dawn approaches slowly across the sky, casting pink hues over everything around you, you realize with a quiet satisfaction that tonight's small act has made an impact, perhaps not grand or earth-shattering, but meaningful nonetheless. You stand up carefully, ensuring your cloak is secure against morning chill before stepping away from the fire. The cool air of dawn whispers softly in your ears as you move towards where others are starting to stir and prepare for another day's work. The weight of yesterday lingers on your shoulders now, a reminder both of struggle endured and hope held dear. You take a deep breath, letting the fresh morning scents fill your lungs, scents of dewy grass and earth mixed with distant smoke signaling life, continuing as always. Tomorrow will bring new challenges indeed, but for tonight, you are content knowing that even in this brutal world, small acts of humanity can provide some semblance of meaning amidst endless toil. You drift into sleep, your body heavy with the weight of today's toil and tomorrow's uncertainty. The bedroll beneath you is thin, worn down by countless nights on campaign, but it somehow offers a semblance of comfort. Around you, the legionaries toss and turn, their dreams disturbed only occasionally by the clinking of metal or the low moans from those plagued by fever or malaise. In your sleep, memories flicker, of home, if ever there was one, and of the simple joys that now seem a distant dream. You imagine your wife, her gentle smile, and the laughter of your children. But these thoughts are quickly replaced by images of battle, the roar of the crowd, the stench of blood and sweat, the deafening clangor as swords clash against shields. The dreams are always haunted by this relentless violence. As dawn approaches, you stir slightly, drawing in a deep breath of crisp night air. Outside, the stars begin to fade from view, replaced by an indifferent sky that seems to hold no promise for tomorrow. You rise and stretch your arms above your head, feeling the tension in every muscle as if it were a physical weight pressing down on your chest. The first light reveals the camp, a cluster of tents huddled together under the watchful gaze of guards armed with spears and shields. The air is thick with the scent of burnt wood from last night's fires, mingling with the earthy tang of damp soil. As you make your way to breakfast, the legionaries rise one by one, their faces weary but resolute. The morning meal consists mostly of stale bread dipped in a weak broth, served on wooden trenchers that seem to have outlived their usefulness long ago. The silence is thick with unspoken thoughts and heavy hearts. You take your place among your comrades, savoring the brief moment before you must return to duties both mundane and perilous. After breakfast, orders are given, another day of training in formation or patrolling the perimeter. Today's task involves drilling new recruits in the art of spear throwing, a skill that could mean life or death on any given day. You find yourself instructing a group of eager but unsteady hands, their eyes wide with both fear and determination. The afternoon sun beats down relentlessly, casting long shadows across the training ground. Sweat drips from your brow as you repeat the same instructions over and over, each command echoing in your mind like a mantra. Stand tall, keep your balance, throw straight. The recruits struggle but show promise. Their efforts are met with praise and encouragement. As the day wanes, you find yourself walking alone near the edge of the camp. The landscape is vast, a sea of earth and stone stretching endlessly to the horizon. Here, away from the noise and tension, there's a sense of freedom, albeit fleeting. You stand by a small stream where dewy grass meets the soil, inhaling deeply as if trying to memorize these last moments of respite. A soft breeze stirs, carrying with it the distant sounds of the legion, men shouting commands, horses neighing, and the occasional caw of a crow overhead. These sounds are familiar, but somehow foreign, part of your daily reality, yet almost too much to bear. You close your eyes for a moment, letting them drift back over the faces you've seen today, young and old, strong and weak, all united in this shared struggle. As night falls once more, you return to camp, feeling a mix of fatigue and resolve. The Legion's voice may wax and wane with each passing day, but tonight, as always, it finds strength in the bonds forged through hardship and sacrifice. You settle back into your bedroll, listening to the distant hum of life continuing around you, men talking softly or praying under their breath, a guard moving quietly along his patrol. In this brutal world, where tomorrow's challenges loom large, small acts of humanity do provide some semblance of meaning amidst endless toil. Tonight, as you close your eyes and drift off into another night of sleep, the memory lingers of a wife and children waiting back home, of comrades fighting side by side, and of the resilience that keeps each one of you moving forward despite everything. And so, under the watchful stars, the Legion's spirit whispers through the darkness, ready to face whatever tomorrow brings. The first thing you notice when waking from your meager cot is a chill that seeps through the thin canvas of your blanket and clings to your skin. like an unwanted guest. Outside, the dawn has yet to break, but already the cold air whispers secrets about the night's frost. Your sandaled feet drag along the hard ground as you rise, finding their place among the other legionaries who have woken too early for anything pleasant. Outside the makeshift barracks, the sound of your comrades stirring is a familiar hum, a muffled murmur that breaks into grunts and snorts as they wake from slumber. You pause by your gear, your tunic hangs off a nail like a wet rag, its fabric stiff with sweat and soil. You yank it over your head, feeling the rough texture against your skin, then slip on your leather sandals, their soles thick and calloused from countless miles marched in. The weight of the world seems to settle as you pull on your belt, a piece of sturdy leather that cinches tightly around your waist, supporting the sword at your side. The metal is cold, its surface slick with oil, some superstition about keeping it free from rust, though a few men have lost their lives because they trusted those fears over quick action. You step out into the courtyard, where others are already beginning to gather in small clusters. Some mutter softly as they prepare for yet another day of drilling and marching. Others stretch or yawn, trying to shake off the night's restlessness. The air is thick, with the scent of sweat mingled with earth, a faint tang of something sharper than usual, perhaps a mix of hay from last night's ration, or perhaps just your own body after hours spent in confined spaces. Nearby, a fire crackles softly, its light dancing across faces and casting long shadows. The smell of roasting meat fills the air, not as strong yet, but coming soon enough to draw you over to where food is being prepared. You glance at your friend, Marcus, who waves slightly before turning back to his task, sharpening a spear tip with practiced strokes that seem almost meditative in their repetitive nature. You find an empty spot by the fire and sit down on the ground, feeling the cold stones beneath you. The heat from the flames soon warms your hands as they fold over each other in your lap. You stare into the orange glow, letting it ease some of the stiffness that has settled since last night's patrol. The sound of rustling leaves and distant crows adds to the ambience, a constant soundtrack of life here. As you wait for your turn at breakfast, a young recruit stumbles out from his cot, eyes still bleary but trying desperately not to show it. He trips over himself, nearly falling into a pile of discarded armor, helmets and shields clattering as they hit the ground. Laughter breaks out among nearby soldiers who can't resist a little good-natured ribbing. The recruit turns red with embarrassment before darting back inside his barrack in an attempt to salvage some dignity. You shake your head, chuckling softly at the absurdity of it all, how something as simple and mundane as getting up for breakfast could be so fraught with worry and pride. The world outside your camp is harsh, but within these walls there are small rituals that help keep spirits from breaking entirely. A soldier approaches you carrying a wooden bowl filled with porridge, a mixture of grain and water seasoned with herbs to make it more palatable. You take the bowl, feeling its weight in your hands before lifting it close enough to smell the warmth emanating from within. The scent is familiar, simple but comforting, and you can almost taste the thick consistency even without taking a sip. As you begin to eat, the rhythmic slurping of spoons and murmured conversations around you blend into an ambient background noise that helps lull your mind away from the tediousness of the day ahead. You glance at Marcus again, he's still sharpening his spear with quiet focus. He doesn't look up, but speaks softly nonetheless. "Another long day," he says, almost to himself as much as to you. "You ready for it?" You nod without looking directly at him, swallowing a mouthful of porridge before responding. "Always," you say simply. The truth is that there are days when the weight of this life feels too heavy, too relentless, but today isn't one of them. Marcus smirks slightly, but doesn't comment further as he returns to his task. You can see in his eyes a mix of exhaustion and resolve, a testament perhaps, not just to him, but to all who walk these halls with you. The fire crackles again, its light dancing across the ground where you sit now, warming your feet while casting an ethereal glow over everything around. The morning stretches ahead like a long, winding road, one that leads only forward without much hope of turning back. But for now, it's just another day in this endless cycle of routine and survival, a series of small battles fought with whatever tools at hand. Outside the camp, you can hear the distant sound of hooves on hard-packed dirt, marching orders perhaps, or maybe just the wind playing tricks again as morning takes hold. Either way, the rhythm it creates is almost hypnotic in its repetition, a constant reminder that no matter how much your body cries out for rest or even moments of peace, there's always something to do. And so, under the watchful stars, the Legion's spirit whispers through the darkness, ready to face whatever tomorrow brings. In the silence that followed the night's eats, the legionaries stirred with a collective sigh, a groan of bodies unyielding to slumber, yet longing for it all the same. The watchful stars seemed to gleam with knowledge of their plight, twinkling in an indifferent dance across the heavens. Each man lay upon his hard pallet, wrapped tightly in woolen cloaks, his mind racing through a tapestry of thoughts and fears spun from the thin thread of day's events. Caius, the centurion, moved quietly among them, his boot soles whispering over the dry earth. He knew each face, each silent plea for just one moment to rest in peace. His eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the lines of weary men, a mix of pride and pity etched on their rugged faces. Caius could see through the veil of sleep deprivation, how their muscles twitched from fatigue, how even the smallest sound seemed magnified by the quietude. Auburn hair spilled over Titus's shoulders as he turned to face away from his companion, seeking what little respite remained in the darkness. His eyes closed slowly, betraying a momentary softness before settling back into the grim resolve needed for survival. Beside him, Marcus clenched and unclenched his fist, fingers leaving crescent marks on the wooden board of his bed. He had seen too much, heard too many stories of comrades lost to disease or injury. Every night brought a new round of anxiety. The centurion's presence was comforting, yet unsettling. His every step spoke volumes about their collective fate. Here they were, mere shadows in the vast expanse of land, stretching endlessly beyond the walls of this outpost, and here stood Caius, a constant reminder that leadership came with its own heavy burden. In the dim light filtering through the wooden slats above, Sabinus traced his fingers over the worn leather of his shield. He had fought for so long, endured countless battles, where death was but a whisper away. Yet tonight, as he lay still and listened to the distant sounds of crickets and rustling leaves, something shifted within him. Fear began to creep in like night shadows, cloaking his thoughts. Sabinus's mind wandered back to times when life seemed simpler, before the brutal daily reality had taken hold. Those days were long gone now, replaced by an unyielding schedule of training, drills, and relentless march formations that tested both body and spirit. The sandaled feet knew what they could not speak, endurance tempered with a quiet despair. Across the campfire's flickering light, Caius caught Sabinus's gaze for just a moment before turning his attention back to the map spread out on the ground between them. In that brief exchange, an unspoken understanding passed between the two men, a bond forged in blood and hardship. For now, they were united not only by their shared duty, but also by this silent acknowledgement of each other's struggles. As dawn began to break with its first tentative light, casting long shadows over the sleeping legionaries, Caius rose silently from his spot beside Sabinus. With a final look at the men who had become more than just soldiers, they were brothers, Caius led them through their morning routines, stretching stiff muscles, washing in the cold stream nearby, and preparing themselves for another day of toil. The sun climbed higher into the sky as they began their march towards the next assignment, a reminder that tomorrow held no guarantees. Yet here, amidst the relentless grind, there was a quiet strength, a resolve born from countless nights like this one, when shadows danced upon walls of tents and whispered secrets between sandaled feet knew more than any spoken word could ever convey. And so they moved forward together under the watchful gaze of the sun, each step carrying with it the weight of history, the burden of survival, and the enduring spirit that kept them marching on. The earth underfoot was a mix of dirt and stone, hard beneath your feet but unevenly laid. The sun had risen fully now, casting its bright light across the field where you and your fellow legionaries marched in unison. It smelled like sweat and dust, with an underlying note of something more pungent, the stench of unwashed flesh after a long night's rest. You could feel the weight of your armor pressing down on your shoulders, as if it had grown heavier since yesterday. You and your brothers-in-arms moved forward together under the watchful gaze of the sun, each step carrying with it the weight of history, the burden of survival, and the enduring spirit that kept them marching on. The sound of sandals clattering against stones was a constant rhythm, punctuated occasionally by the clank of armor as soldiers shifted or turned to glance at their neighbors. Your cloak flapped gently in the light breeze, whispering secrets only you could hear. You were wearing your tunic today with its simple, undecorated design, plain and unadorned like most of your peers in this legion. The texture was rough against your skin, linen woven from flax that had been beaten until it felt almost paper-like, yet still retained a slight resistance to the touch. As you walked, you noticed the landscape around you more acutely. Here were fields of wheat, with stalks swaying slightly under the sun's warmth, and their patches of wildflowers blooming in colorful clumps. The light was golden here, casting long shadows that danced across your path as if mocking the monotony of this daily journey. The sound of a distant bugle cut through the morning air, sharp and clear like a finger tapping against wood. It echoed faintly from some nearby hillside, where camp likely lay hidden behind rows of tents, or perhaps just beyond the line of sight. The call was brief but unmistakable. It seemed to signal something, though you couldn't quite place what. You paused for a moment as your mind wandered back to last night's supper in the mess tent. It had been as usual, a slab of tough meat and bread crusts that were hard enough to chip teeth with. The smell still lingered on your tongue. It was heavy and earthy, like something left out too long under the sun. You remembered feeling slightly ill after eating, but ignoring the discomfort because you knew that retching would only make things worse. The soldiers around you continued their steady march, oblivious or unbothered by what lay in their stomachs. You wondered if they felt as queasy as you did sometimes. Perhaps, given enough time and undiluted food, everyone might experience a similar fate. But here was the brutal reality of life in a legion. Endure the meager meals and keep moving forward no matter how much your body protested. Your thoughts drifted to tonight's meal. Would it be any better? Or would you have to settle for another round of rations that tasted like sawdust mixed with animal fat? You sighed not because you were frustrated, but rather because enduring such mundane discomforts was part and parcel of the life you led here. It wasn't a choice, there simply weren't many alternatives. The path ahead curved gently down into what seemed to be an ancient ravine, or perhaps just a deep gully cut by time and water flows over centuries. The earth gave way under your feet, softening slightly as if it had been recently disturbed. You paused again, taking in the view around you, fields giving way to trees here, hills rising up there with their own patches of growth. A small stream trickled through the middle of this natural path, its surface glinting like a ribbon of silver under the sun's rays. Water lapped gently at stones, creating tiny ripples that danced in the sunlight before vanishing into deeper shadows where they couldn't be seen anymore. You reached out to touch one of these rocks. It was cool and smooth against your skin, damp from recent rains. The weight of your pack on your back felt heavier now. It contained more than just your personal belongings, food rations, tools for daily survival, even some extra clothing in case you were caught unprepared by the elements. You breathed deeply, letting out a slow exhale that seemed to carry away some of the tension building up inside. As if on cue, another soldier beside you spoke softly. You know what they say, Vulps. Some things are better left unsaid during meals. He chuckled quietly and nudged you slightly with his elbow. You glanced at him. He was older than most in your company, perhaps in his early 30s or 40s by the look of it. His name was Flavius, a seasoned veteran who had seen enough battles to know better. You nodded slowly, understanding what he meant without needing further explanation. The name nobody would say during meals, Vulps, was indeed something best kept quiet until after everyone else had finished their rations. It wasn't just the potential for causing disharmony or embarrassment among comrades. It was also about maintaining order and avoiding unnecessary complications. Flavius continued, but sometimes, well, let's just say you might hear whispers in the dark hours when everyone is tired. His voice lowered conspiratorially as if sharing a secret. You smiled slightly despite yourself. Perhaps there were small pleasures even within such harsh realities. You resumed walking side by side with Flavius, the two of you blending into the larger group once more. The path ahead led deeper into this natural ravine, where sunlight filtered through leaves and branches high above, casting patterns on the ground below like intricate lacework. You walked steadily forward, each step echoing softly against the stone beneath your feet. As you moved further in, the air grew slightly cooler. A light breeze carried with it the scent of earth and growing things, mixed with distant hints of smoke from nearby hearths or cooking fires. The sound of running water grew louder now, a small brook that cut through this natural corridor, its surface shimmering like liquid silver under golden sunlight. You could feel your body beginning to tire after such an extended march. The weight of armor and pack pressed harder against you with each passing moment. Yet here was something soothing too, the rhythmic sound of water flowing steadily alongside, the gentle caress of cool air brushing past skin, the knowledge that even amidst hardship there were small comforts still available. Your mind wandered once more to thoughts beyond this immediate journey, dreams perhaps or fears for what lay ahead in coming days and weeks. But such musings held little meaning compared to the simple act of moving forward together as one unit under shared burdens and bonds forged through countless hours on foot, marching towards whatever destiny awaited them. And so you continued down that winding path carved by time itself, each step echoing softly against stone beneath your feet, surrounded by a world both alien yet familiar, a place where history was made not just in grand battles or dramatic events, but rather in the small, daily details of existence. In this place, where history whispered through every stone and shadow, you found yourself amidst a legion of men bound by duty to an empire far larger than any individual's body could contain. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, salt, and smoke from countless fires that flickered like tiny stars against the darkening sky. Each soldier, though dressed in armor as if they were kings, moved with the grace of cattle driven along their path by unseen hands. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the encampment. The noise was a cacophony, metal clashing upon metal, leather creaking underfoot, and voices raised in shared conversation or silent grunts of exertion. Men tended to fires whose flames danced with an intensity that seemed almost alive, their faces illuminated by the flickering light. You wandered through this camp as if it were a city of its own, each corner housing secrets whispered among friends who had endured countless trials together. Here in these dimly lit huts and the open space between them, you heard stories of battles won and lost, tales of love and longing, and laments for home. The common thread that united every voice was a shared understanding that their lives were bound by a harsh reality. Each day demanded more from them than they might have believed possible. As night fell, the camp took on an eerie silence broken only by the occasional snore or the distant cry of a guard dog. In this stillness, you approached a small group huddled around what little light their fire offered, a soldier named Lucius, his face etched with lines of worry and determination, his friend Marcus, who laughed quietly at some jest even as he held himself in tension, and Gaius, whose eyes seemed to hold the weight of countless battles. Lucius, you called softly, addressing him by name. He turned towards your voice, recognition dawning on his face before he gestured for you to join them. "You know then?" Lucius asked, already knowing but wanting confirmation from someone who had seen more than most. "I have heard the stories," you replied gently, sitting down among them as if they were equals in this shared struggle. "The name," the one nobody would say during meals. Lucius nodded slowly, his gaze drifting to Marcus and Gaius before returning to yours. "It's a name that carries more weight than any of us could bear," he said quietly. Gaius leaned forward slightly, as if drawn by an unspoken promise. "What is it about this name?" His voice was low, but carried the urgency of someone who knew too well its power. You took a deep breath, gathering your thoughts before speaking again. It's not just any name, you began carefully. There's a story behind every syllable, every letter that makes up such a word. In this legion, it is forbidden to speak certain names aloud, especially during meals or when gathered in close quarters. Why? Marcus asked, his curiosity evident as he shifted closer. Because of the power these names hold, you explained. In our world, words are more than just sounds. They carry meaning and can invoke consequences that we cannot fully comprehend. This particular name is one such word, a reminder of loss, suffering, and sacrifice. Lucius nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. That's why it's called the name nobody would say during meals, he said, echoing your earlier words. You see, you continued, in this legion, we are not just soldiers. We are a family bound by shared experiences and secrets that shape our every action. The name is but one such secret, a warning to all who dare forget the brutality of daily reality or wish to change it. The men fell silent for a moment, lost in their own thoughts as they processed what you had said. Gaius broke the silence with a quiet question, but does everyone know its power? Are there those outside this legion, those not bound by these same bonds, who might misuse such knowledge? You nodded gravely. The truth is complex, you admitted. Some within the ranks understand more than others, and beyond our borders lie individuals who would do anything to wield that name's power for their own gain. Marcus spoke up again, his voice firm but tinged with concern. Then why risk it? Why allow such a dangerous word to linger in everyone's minds? Because, you replied gently, sometimes the truth is more important than safety or ease. By acknowledging the harsh realities of our existence, we can face them head-on and perhaps find ways to mitigate some of that brutality. Lucius sighed deeply, running his hand through his hair as if wrestling with a heavy burden. It's easier said than done, he admitted ruefully. Yes, you agreed softly, but it is the path forward. To change anything, we must first confront what we are, and only then can we begin to shape our own destinies. As dawn broke over the encampment, casting a pale light through half-closed eyelids and silhouetting figures against the sky, the men around you exchanged glances filled with resolve. In that moment, despite the weight of their past and the shadows of their future, they were united by more than just shared hardships. They were bound by an understanding of their own power, a recognition that even in this brutal reality, there was still hope to be found. With a collective nod, Lucius rose from his seat. Let's begin our day with strength, he declared, his voice resolute. We will face whatever comes, Marcus added firmly as Gaius nodded in agreement. And so, under the watchful eye of the rising sun and the silent weight of their shared history, you joined them on the path ahead, each step echoing softly against stone beneath your feet, surrounded by a world both alien yet familiar, a place where every day was a battle for survival and resilience. The weight of your pack shifts with every step you take down the cobbled street toward the barracks. It's a familiar sensation, soothing and reassuring, yet also heavy, pressing against your shoulders as if it were made from lead rather than leather. The sun has barely risen above the horizon, casting long shadows that stretch out like fingers reaching to grab at you. You walk with deliberate steps, each footfall echoing softly on the worn stone of the road. Your tunic is still damp from the night's dew, clinging uncomfortably close against your skin. You pull it tighter around yourself, trying to ward off the chill before the warmth of the day fully takes hold. The air is crisp and clean, carrying with it a hint of earth mixed with something else, something more robust. You can smell it now, the rank aroma of sweat and urine that clings heavily in the early morning air, mingling with the faint scent of cooking meat from one of the open fires nearby. It's an unpleasant mixture, but you've grown accustomed to it over these past few days as a recruit. Each breath seems heavy, carrying the weight not just of your pack or the cold dawn, but also that shared by all who walk this road. You approach the gate of the barracks, and the sound of clashing metal, hammers striking anvils inside, is almost immediate. It's a harsh noise, cutting through the morning stillness with its persistent rhythmic beat. The guards are already hard at work preparing for the day ahead, setting up weapons and armor in readiness for whatever may come. You stop at the gate, pausing to take it all in, a scene that seems both familiar yet strange. Men clad in various states of undress mill about, some still rubbing their eyes or scratching where they've slept. Others are already dressed in tunics, boots, and armors, each piece polished until they gleam under the rising sun's soft rays. Inside, you can see the barracks themselves, a vast space filled with bunks stacked 3 high, their wooden frames creaking slightly as new recruits like yourself shuffle through them to find a place. The smell of old sweat and wet wool is overpowering here, mingling with the faint tang of oil used for maintenance on metal parts. You're not alone. Several other recruits are already assembled, their faces worn from sleepless nights and nervous energy. There's a hushed murmur as you move among them, nervous whispers about what lies ahead, jokes that are more meant to be comforting than actually humorous. The weight of your pack seems heavier now, the burden of everything weighing down on you. The first thing you notice is the smell, the earthy scent mixed with metal and sweat, and something else, a faint hint of cooking food from one of the cooks preparing breakfast in a nearby kitchen. It's an odd mix that fills the air, each breath heavy as if holding secrets or warnings. You're directed to your bunk, another recruit already there, his face red and eyes bleary as he tries to make sense of his surroundings. He looks up as you approach, offering a weary smile before turning back to his own pack. You set yours down gently on the floor beside him, feeling its familiar weight settle into place. "Morning," you say softly, your voice tinged with exhaustion and resolve. The other recruit nods in acknowledgement, already shifting through his own supplies, his eyes scanning over each item as if memorizing their locations by rote. The barracks is a hive of activity now. The clanging of metal continues, the sounds of men preparing for the day growing louder. Outside, the first light of dawn bathes everything in a warm glow, casting long shadows that stretch out and merge with others, like fingers reaching towards you. You sit down on your bunk, feeling its hard wooden surface against your legs as you settle into it. The weight of your pack is still there, your belt and pouches heavy from the night's supplies. You take off your boots, letting them drop to the floor with a soft thud that echoes in the quiet room. The recruits around you are beginning their routine, their own packs laid out before them as they sort through weapons and armor, checking to ensure everything is accounted for. The air here is thick with anticipation, every step, every breath, filled with an underlying tension that speaks of survival and duty. You take a deep breath, trying to clear your mind as the first rays of sun begin to warm the room. It's a strange sensation, the warmth creeping in from outside, mingling with the chill still held within the building itself. You can feel it on your skin now, a gentle caress that seems almost welcoming after so many cold nights. You look around at the other recruits, each one lost in their own thoughts or preoccupied with the tasks before them. The weight of expectation is heavy, pressing down on all of you like a shared burden. It's both a relief and an ache, the knowledge that this day will be filled not just with toil, but also with moments where your actions could mean life or death. The smell here, so earthy yet metallic, is almost overwhelming now. You can feel it in the air, in every breath you take as you sit there on your bunk. It's a strange mix, a reminder of what lies ahead and the countless battles that will test both body and spirit. Outside, the sun rises higher into the sky, its light filtering through the open windows to dance upon the bunks below. The clanging of metal continues, each strike echoing softly against stone as it merges with other sounds, the distant creaking of doors being opened, the soft shuffling of boots on worn floors. The weight of your pack shifts again, a reminder that even here, in this quiet moment before dawn's light fully takes hold, there is a task to be done. You gather up what you need, your tunic and armor, each piece carefully placed where they belong until tomorrow night when the cycle begins anew. As you rise from your bunk, stretching slightly as muscles protest after hours of stillness, the weight seems lighter somehow, the promise of daybreak holding within it a hope that maybe today will be different. But history teaches us differently. Every dawn brings its own battles and trials, each one demanding not just strength, but also resilience. The barracks is now alive with movement, the clanging of metal merging into a symphony of preparation as men ready themselves for the day ahead. You can feel it in your bones, a shared determination to face whatever comes, no matter how daunting or uncertain. And so, under the watchful eye of the rising sun and the silent weight of their shared history, you join them on the path ahead, each step echoing softly against stone beneath your feet, surrounded by a world both alien yet familiar, a place where every day is a battle for survival and resilience. As dawn broke over the encampment, casting long shadows that danced upon the rugged terrain, the first recruits to stir were met with the harsh reality of their new lives. The air was thick, with a mix of anticipation and dread as they prepared for the day ahead. In these early hours, a sense of camaraderie began to form, forged through shared experiences and silent understanding. The three things every recruit kept quietly: comradeship, fear, and resolve. These were the unseen bonds that held them together in their first tentative steps into Legion life. Each soldier carried within him a private burden, one of belonging, another of self-preservation, and a third of duty, a mix that often left them grappling with conflicting emotions. The path ahead was lined with obstacles they had yet to face fully: physical challenges, psychological trials, and the ever-present specter of death. As they moved in formation through the camp, their footsteps synchronized by an invisible drumbeat of training exercises and drill commands, each step echoed against the stone beneath them, a testament not only to their physical strength, but also to their growing resolve. Their first day was filled with a myriad of tasks, ranging from fetching water from the nearby stream, carrying supplies on long treks through rough terrain, to cleaning weapons and performing various maintenance duties. These activities were designed to build both individual resilience and collective camaraderie. In the shadow of these early challenges, they began to learn not only how to fight, but also how to survive. The training ground was a crucible where the recruits faced their fears head-on. They learned about the intricacies of weapon handling, how to grip a sword or throw a javelin with deadly precision, and practiced formations that would later become second nature in battle. Each drill was not just physical but mental, pushing them beyond their perceived limits and instilling an unspoken belief that they could endure anything. Yet amidst all this preparation, the fear lingered, a creeping shadow that no amount of training or camaraderie seemed to dispel completely. It manifested differently among each recruit. For some, it was the raw terror of facing a real enemy in combat, while for others, it was the more mundane dread of waking up at night to the sound of marching feet and distant cries. But there was also resolve. Beyond the physical discipline that the legions demanded, this was the mental fortitude that kept them going. It was an unspoken vow, a promise to each other and themselves that they would see it through no matter what. This resolve began to take shape in small ways, standing taller after receiving harsh commands, lifting heavier loads with determination, or simply maintaining their composure during moments of stress. As the day wore on, these recruits started to recognize one another not just as fellow soldiers, but as potential friends and allies, a bond that would prove invaluable. They shared stories around the fire at night, spoke in hushed tones about their families back home, and even confided in each other about their deepest fears. These quiet conversations became a lifeline, helping them weather the relentless demands of training. The brutality of daily reality slowly began to set in, a stark reminder that survival was not just an ideal, but a constant struggle. The legions required more than mere physical strength. They demanded unyielding will and unwavering dedication. It was during these moments when the recruits truly understood the weight of their decision to join. By nightfall, as the camp settled into its routine, men returning from training, cooks preparing dinner, with a mix of skill and frustration, the first day's trials seemed like distant memories. Yet they knew that this was only the beginning, a journey filled with more challenges than any could have imagined. As they retired for their nightly rest, each soldier lay down beneath the starlit sky, reflecting on what it meant to be part of something greater than themselves. In the quiet moments before sleep, there were no loud boasts or false bravado, only a shared understanding that this was not just about surviving, but thriving in an environment where failure was measured by more than just physical prowess. The legions demanded not only strength and skill, but also resilience, courage, and loyalty. And as they drifted into slumber under the watchful gaze of their comrades, each recruit carried with them a sense of purpose, a commitment to endure whatever trials lay ahead for themselves and for those who looked up to them. And so began another day in the relentless march forward, each step echoing softly against stone beneath their feet, surrounded by both alien yet familiar surroundings where every moment was a battle for survival and resilience. The air smelled of damp earth and distant smoke, mingling with a faint tang of sweat and leather as you trudge forward. The weight of your pack shifts subtly on each step, pressing into the soles of your feet in rhythm to the march. You can feel the sun's warmth filtering through the dense canopy overhead, casting dappled shadows across the path. And so began another day in the relentless march forward, each step echoing softly against stone beneath their feet, surrounded by both alien yet familiar surroundings where every moment was a battle for survival and resilience. You have been told that this is the silent march, but it's not just about silence. It's more like an unspoken understanding among soldiers. No one dares break the quiet too loudly, lest they disrupt the fragile harmony of their collective will. The weight on your back seems to grow heavier with each passing hour, a silent reminder that even in this vast empire, you are but a small cog in its machine. The path ahead is unremarkable, a simple dirt trail lined with scrubby bushes and scattered boulders. You can see the outline of distant hills on either side, their shapes softened by layers of low-lying clouds. The ground crumbles slightly underfoot, giving way to the occasional clump of grass that has managed to take root despite the relentless march. Your pack is filled with supplies, a few pieces of hard bread, some dried meat, and an assortment of olives and figs, enough for another day, but not enough to quell the gnawing hunger in your stomach. You pull out one of the olives, its skin tough, yet somehow satisfying as you bite into it. The bitter taste clings to your teeth, a small comfort against the endless grind. Beside you walks another soldier, his armor gleaming faintly under the sun's rays. He doesn't speak. Instead, he keeps pace with yours, matching each step in perfect unison. His presence is almost comforting, a silent partner in this long journey that stretches out before both of you like an ancient road laid bare by centuries. Every now and then, a bird calls from above or a small creature scurries across the path, brief interruptions in your routine that serve as gentle reminders of nature's indifference to human affairs. You pass by a shallow stream where water trickles over smooth stones. A few drops splash onto your arm as you brush past, sending shivers up your spine and momentarily refreshing your senses. The heat begins to rise around midday, growing ever more oppressive. Sweat trickles down your brow despite the intermittent shade provided by the trees that line the path. You wipe it away with a rough hand, feeling the fabric of your tunic against your skin, stiff from wear, but still offering some meager protection. Your stomach grumbles softly, a constant reminder of how long since you last ate. The bread and meat have become less than appetizing, their flavors dulled by repeated consumption. You try to ignore it, focusing instead on the rhythmic sound of your boots hitting the ground, each step a small victory over exhaustion, a tiny defiance against fatigue. The march is not just about moving forward. It's also about maintaining discipline and unity among your fellow soldiers. The centurion at the head of the column occasionally glances back, his gaze sharp but unspoken in its meaning. Stay together, keep pace, don't falter. You nod to those around you with a silent acknowledgement that says, I'm here, even if words are hard-pressed. As the day wears on, the shadows begin their slow descent from above. The sun lowers itself into the sky, casting long, slanted rays across the ground, a final light before night's encroachment. You can feel the air start to cool slightly, a small relief as you walk under its fading warmth. The silence around you deepens now that evening approaches. The sounds of nature, birds, and insects become more pronounced in their absence from human noise. The path narrows here and there, giving way to more rugged terrain where loose stones threaten to trip your steps. You must remain alert, each misstep a potential danger. You find yourself glancing around occasionally, checking for signs that might indicate the day's end, a small clearing or a makeshift campsite, though such things are rare in these stretches of wilderness. The only breaks come when you and others stop briefly to rest, sinking down onto the ground with weary sighs. You sit against a tree, leaning your pack beside you as you take off your sandals to let your feet breathe. The weight of your surroundings becomes almost tangible now. The earth beneath you, the air around you, the distant hills that seem closer than ever in this twilight light. The smell of damp soil and decaying leaves is all-encompassing, a reminder of nature's constant presence even amidst human endeavor. You can feel it seeping into your clothes, mingling with sweat and dust. As night begins to fall softly around you, the air grows colder, carrying with it a faint chill that nips at exposed skin. The first stars appear in the sky above, scattered like tiny diamonds against an otherwise pitch-black expanse. You draw your cloak tighter about yourself, feeling its rough fabric offer some small comfort. The march continues on into this twilight realm where light and darkness merge. The sounds of nature grow louder, crickets chirping softly from the undergrowth, wind whispering through leaves, but they are not enough to break the quiet that hovers around you like a heavy blanket. You can feel the weight of exhaustion settling in your bones, each breath coming slower as the day's exertions take their toll. And yet, there is also something almost meditative about it, this slow descent into darkness and rest after endless walking under sun and stars. The silent march becomes not just a journey, but a ritual, one that binds you to every soldier around you in this unspoken bond of survival and shared experience. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds fade away as night takes hold. In this quietude, the ache of each day's exertions begins to ease slightly, just enough so that sleep might come without too much struggle. The weight of the world seems lighter now, if only by degrees, and you find yourself drifting towards slumber in a place far from home, but still somehow familiar, a temporary sanctuary amidst the unending march forward. As night fully settles around you, you know that tomorrow will bring another day's challenge, another silent step forward. But for this moment, the burdens of the past few hours ease into a gentle respite under starlit skies, a small victory in an otherwise relentless journey. Under the starlit sky, the men lay motionless on their thin blankets, their bodies mingling with the ground as if part of it. The soft rustle of fabric against stone was all that broke the silence, a gentle reminder of their precarious shelter. A faint whisper of wind carried the scent of brine and salt from the nearby sea, mingling with the earthy aroma of worn leather and dry grass. In the distance, the distant hoot of an owl pierced the night air, its echo lingering like a ghostly confirmation that this was still the land of their enemies. The men lay awake for some time, thoughts drifting through their minds in an uneasy dance, dreams of home, fears of the future, and perhaps even fleeting glimpses of past glories now lost to reality. The silence grew thicker as night deepened, a heavy weight pressing down on all who dared remain conscious. It was then that the first stirrings began, soft groans from those whose muscles refused rest, whispered consolations between friends seeking comfort in shared misfortune. The men knew well these moments of vulnerability. They had learned to embrace them as part of their silent march. The next day dawned with a crispness that seemed to sear the earth underfoot, its cold touch sending shivers through even seasoned veterans. As the first light painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, the legionaries began to rise from their makeshift beds. They gathered their meager possessions, rations tied securely within leather pouches, spare clothing rolled into bundles, and prepared for another day's march. The journey was slow but steady. Each man walked with a purpose that was both physical and mental. Their steps were deliberate, measured in the face of an unyielding landscape that seemed to stretch endlessly before them. The path ahead was marked not by grand vistas or inspiring landmarks, but rather by the mundane, patches of uneven ground, loose stones that threatened to trip the unwary, stretches of scorched earth where nothing would grow. Yet through it all, there were moments of quiet camaraderie. A gruff joke shared between friends as they stumbled over a particularly steep incline, the comforting weight of a hand on shoulder during an especially treacherous descent, or simply finding solace in another's silent understanding when faced with hardship. As the afternoon sun began to wane, casting long shadows across their path, the men paused for a brief respite. They huddled together beneath the shadowy cover of a nearby overhang, sharing rations and recounting stories from days past. These were tales not often told, epics of valor and glory that had once been whispered around campfires in times of peace. But here, on this silent march through enemy territory, those tales took on new meaning. They became the threads woven into a tapestry of resolve, a reminder that even as their bodies bore witness to relentless hardship, there remained within them something unbreakable. And so they continued onward, each step forward a testament not only to survival, but also to the indomitable spirit that had carried Roman legions through centuries of conquest and conflict. For in these quiet moments, amidst the grinding reality of their daily struggles, they found strength, strength born from unity, resilience forged in adversity, and an unwavering commitment to duty. As night once again settled over them, the men lay down to rest under skies filled with countless stars. The silence that enveloped them was profound. It spoke volumes about their shared experience and the silent march that had brought them so far. Tomorrow would bring another challenge, but for this fleeting moment, they found peace in knowing that together they were not alone. Thus ended yet another day of their journey, a testament to endurance and a beacon of hope amidst the brutal daily reality of life in the Roman legion. The first thing you notice upon waking is a soft hum of activity from the legion's camp, a chorus of grunts and groans as men rise to their feet in unison with the rising sun. The cool morning air seeps into your lungs like a breath of clarity, tinged faintly with the scent of earth and damp straw. You stretch your limbs slowly, feeling each muscle respond with a reluctant sigh before settling on a rock near the edge of the encampment. The weight of your legionary shield is familiar as it rests against you, its heavy leather strap digging into your shoulder like an old friend's comforting arm around your waist. A sense of camaraderie washes over you. These men are not just companions in arms, but brothers by virtue of shared hardship and daily struggle. As the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the camp, the aroma of cooking fires begins to mix with that familiar scent, the smell of breakfast being prepared for yet another day. The sounds of clinking pots and hissing pans merge into a gentle symphony, punctuated by occasional yawns or murmurs from fellow legionaries. You reach out to gather some dry leaves in your tunic, using them as makeshift hand protection when you handle the shield. The rough texture of the leather is comforting under your fingers. It's been worn smooth over countless days and nights on campaign. As you prepare for morning drill, a small ache returns from yesterday's training. The familiar tension in your arms and shoulders speaks volumes about just how long this day will be. The sound of metal clashing against metal grows louder as the first group begins their exercises. Men are shouting commands to each other, their voices sharp and clear over the rustling leaves underfoot. You can almost see the sweat forming on brows already, a silent testament to what lies ahead. Each movement is deliberate, precise. Every soldier knows that perfection in formation could mean life or death during battle. You join your squad, feeling the weight of the armor begin to settle around you as you slip into place. The iron rings and leather straps are heavy, but they're familiar. Each piece has its role, contributing to a larger whole. A small relief when the drill sergeant's voice cuts through the morning air. His tone is matter-of-fact, almost humorless in its severity. Men, attention! You find yourself drawn into the routine once more, stepping forward and backward with practiced ease. The sun seems brighter now, casting harsh shadows across the training ground that emphasize every movement. Sweat begins to bead on your brow as you move through the drills, feeling muscles strain but hold steady under the weight of discipline. The sergeant's voice commands attention again. Form ranks. Men scramble into position, adjusting shields and weapons with practiced precision. The sound of metal clashing against leather armor is almost musical in its regularity, a dance of movement that needs no explanation except for the purpose it serves, survival on the battlefield where every second matters. As you settle back into formation, the weight of your shield becomes more pronounced. It's not just physical, but mental, the reminder that this day will be filled with the same trials and tribulations as yesterday's. Each step forward is a small victory against fatigue. Each breath drawn deepens the resolve within you. The sergeant's voice breaks through your thoughts once again. We march today from here to there, he says, pointing eastward where the morning sunlight shines brightly on distant hillsides. A subtle change in his tone hints at the seriousness of this mission. This is no casual march, but one with purpose and peril. Yet for now, it's just another day, another step forward despite all odds. As you fall into formation once more, a sense of camaraderie grows around you, a shared understanding that each man here shares in this journey together. The weight of the shield feels lighter somehow against your shoulder, not because of its physical heaviness, but because it carries with it something far greater: hope, resilience, and the knowledge that tomorrow will bring new challenges to face. The sun climbs higher, casting longer shadows over the training ground as you prepare for the day ahead. The air is thick with anticipation, a mix of tension and determination hanging in the thin morning light. You know there's no turning back now. Every step forward brings closer, not just to your destination, but also towards whatever fate may await at its end. The clangor of metal against leather continues as you prepare for another round of drill, another day filled with both mundane routines and moments that could define your life in ways beyond measure. As the sun climbed higher into the sky, casting its golden hue upon the encampment, the clangor and commotion intensified. The legionaries moved with a purposeful grace that spoke to years of discipline forged under harsh conditions. Sweat trickled down Ward's brow as he adjusted his shield, ensuring it was securely fastened against the leather straps. His hands trembled slightly, betraying the nervous energy coursing through him, a mixture of anticipation and fear. "Ready your swords," shouted Centurion Marcus, his voice carrying over the din like a sharp note on an ancient lyre. The order rang out with authority, slicing through the air to reach each soldier in unison. Ward's fingers clenched tighter around the hilt of his gladius as he took another deep breath. The drill commenced with a precision that bordered on the mechanical. Each movement was rehearsed countless times over days and weeks, every step, every swing of the sword, every thrust forward. The repetitive nature of it all seemed to blur time. One moment felt like an eternity ago when they first began this relentless cycle. "Forward," Marcus barked once more, his voice a command that echoed across the camp. Ward moved with his peers in lockstep, each man matching his neighbor's pace as if by some invisible chain. His eyes remained on the ground, focusing intently on every step to avoid tripping or losing formation, a small victory amidst larger struggles. Yet it was precisely this routine that made today different. Today felt heavier than any other day before. Perhaps it was the weight of their recent training in hand-to-hand combat against enemy soldiers, or maybe just the sheer magnitude of what lay ahead. Whatever the reason, Ward couldn't shake a feeling that today might hold more significance. The drill stretched on, each minute stretching into an eternity as they continued to march and practice. Sweat mingled with dirt under their boots, leaving streaks across the parched earth. Despite the relentless heat, no one faltered. The bonds of brotherhood kept them together even when fatigue threatened to break their resolve. Finally, after what seemed like hours, but was likely only a few short minutes in reality, Marcus raised his hand and silence fell over the camp, like a sudden rainstorm quelling thunderous clouds. Ward felt a momentary relief wash over him before panic set in, the realization that this practice might not be just another drill. A shiver ran down his spine as he turned to face his fellow soldiers. "Today we test our formation," Marcus announced gravely, his tone heavy with purpose. "We will break from the usual routine and engage in a more realistic scenario." The command sent ripples of unease through the ranks. Real combat meant risking lives, both theirs and those they might encounter on the battlefield. The prospect was terrifying yet exhilarating, stirring something primal within each man. "Prepare your armor," Marcus continued without pause, his gaze sweeping over them all. "We will test our skills against a mock enemy force. Remember what you've practiced. Stick to formation." Ward's heart raced as he began to don the cuirass and greaves that protected him, feeling like layers of armor not just for combat, but also for facing whatever uncertainties lay ahead. The clangor of metal echoed once more as each soldier checked their equipment meticulously. Then came the moment Ward had been dreading yet hoped would never come, when Marcus signaled them to move forward into position against an imaginary foe. Their formation broke apart, morphing from the strict lines drilled day after day into something far more chaotic and unpredictable. Each man's movements were fluid now, adapting on instinct rather than rote memorization. Suddenly, a sense of reality struck Ward like a blow to his chest. This wasn't practice, it was simulation, a dress rehearsal for what lay ahead. The fear that had been building inside him broke through the facade of discipline and routine. For just a moment, he felt utterly alone in this vast expanse filled with men who shared similar fears, but kept them hidden behind rigid exterior. Yet even as panic threatened to overwhelm him, Ward remembered why they were here, why all these daily trials and brutal exercises prepared them for today's test. It was about more than survival. It was about brotherhood, honor, and the unbreakable bonds forged in shared adversity. As he stood poised on that makeshift battlefield, surrounded by comrades who mirrored his own uncertainty yet determination, Ward took a deep breath. He squared his shoulders, lifted his shield high, and looked straight ahead, ready to face whatever fate had in store for him today. The clangor of metal against leather faded into the background as reality intruded upon the practiced routine. It was time to put theory into practice and hope that what they learned here would prove sufficient when real battles came calling. And so began a day that would forever alter not just Ward's life, but also reshape his perception of destiny and duty in ways he could scarcely comprehend. The pungent smell of roasting meat hung heavy in the air like a thick blanket, muffling even the distant clatter of bronze armor and iron sandals on stone. The sharp tang of garlic mixed with something else, a hint of something bitter that tugged at your senses, making you squint into the afternoon sun as if it could clear away this pervasive stench clinging to everything around you. Your nose was assaulted by a cacophony of odors, burning embers from the campfire, sweat-soaked wool, and stale urine mingling with dust. The weight of your leather belt pressed firmly against your waist, a constant reminder that even in moments of repose, there were responsibilities to be tended to. Your tunic was damp, not due to the heat, but because you had been running through training exercises earlier today, leaving it sodden and heavy. The ground beneath your feet was hard-packed earth, compacted by countless footsteps over the years. You could feel its rough texture underfoot as you stepped forward into the camp. The smell of charred meat mingled with something else, a faint trace that lingered on your tongue, a hint perhaps of the salt and pepper rubbed onto every piece before it was tossed into the flames. A low murmur rose from the ranks around you, men chatting in hushed tones about their families back home or the upcoming campaign. You could hear snippets. "Will they return to Rome this year?" someone asked. Another replied with a chuckle, "If only I were as lucky." The air was filled with the sound of rustling cloaks and whispering breaths. The weight of your scabbard felt reassuring in your hand, its leather grip cool against the heat of your skin. You ran your fingers over it absent-mindedly, feeling the rough texture that had softened slightly from constant handling. The sword within was no longer a mere tool, but a part of you, a companion through countless battles and skirmishes. As you walked among the soldiers, their armor seemed to gleam more vividly in this afternoon light, catching every ray of sun as if it was some kind of festival. But here, in reality, there was nothing celebratory about it. Each piece of metal, though polished by wear, still bore the scars of countless battles, marks that spoke not of valor, but of survival. The smell grew stronger now, a combination of spices and smoke mingling with something else, a faint hint of decay that lingered just beyond your immediate senses. The air was thick enough to cut with a knife, each breath filling your lungs like a heavy load. You coughed slightly, the action drawing attention from those around you. A nearby soldier turned his head towards you, offering a nod in acknowledgement before returning to his conversation. Another man approached, carrying a tray of food that smelled even more enticing than it looked. The aroma was almost too much to bear, causing your stomach to growl softly despite yourself. He set the tray down on a small table and picked up a piece of bread, tearing off a large chunk. "You haven't eaten yet?" he asked with a grin, eyeing you curiously. You nodded slowly, still trying to process all that was going on around you. The weight of your rations felt inadequate in this moment, the thought of sustenance barely enough to keep you going through another day in this relentless grind. You picked up some bread and meat, tearing off a small piece with clumsy fingers as if it were unfamiliar territory. The texture was rough, almost sandpaper-like against your teeth, but there was an underlying sweetness that made you want more. You chewed slowly, savoring each bite despite the overwhelming smell of everything around you. A nearby campfire crackled loudly, its light dancing across the faces of those gathered around it in small clusters. The warmth from the flames felt welcome against your skin, a brief respite from the oppressive heat and stench. You took off your tunic and draped it over one arm, feeling the rough wool against your back as you leaned forward towards the fire. The smell was almost too much to bear now, every breath filled with this potent mixture of cooking food and something else that clung stubbornly to everything. It seemed impossible for any of these men to sleep in such conditions, yet here they were, enduring it day after day without complaint. The weight on your mind felt heavy as well, the realization sinking in that there was no escape from this relentless cycle. You leaned back against a nearby log, feeling its rough bark beneath you. The smell of smoke and sweat mingled with something else, a hint of wood smoke perhaps, that clung to everything around it. Your eyes drooped slightly, the warmth of the fire drawing you in as if it were some kind of sedative. The sound of conversation drifted past you, soft voices speaking in low tones about their families or the distant lands they had seen. Each word was lost amidst the cacophony of other sounds, the clatter of armor and sandals on stone, the occasional cry from a dog nearby, even the faint whisper of a breeze blowing through the trees. You closed your eyes briefly, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle in as if it were a heavy cloak being draped over you. The smell of food lingered in the air, almost too much to bear. It was not just about sustenance anymore, but a constant reminder of this endless grind, of duty and obligation that seemed to have no end. And so began another day that would forever alter your life in ways you could scarcely comprehend. In the dim light of dawn, as the first hints of golden sunlight barely pierced through the canvas and leather curtain shielding his tiny alcove from the Legion's communal sleeping quarters, Marcus stirred. The air was thick with the lingering scent of charred meat and garlic, a pungent reminder of the day's toils yet to come. The smell, though familiar, cut deep into him like an unyielding taskmaster. He sat up slowly, his muscles stiff from the night's restless sleep on coarse straw. A nearby fire crackled softly, its light dancing across the faces of comrades who had already risen and were beginning their morning preparations, watering ailing rations, sharpening blades, or just sitting in silent contemplation. The smell of food seemed to have seeped into every crevice, clinging to the stone walls like an unwanted guest. Marcus glanced around his small corner of reality, taking stock of his possessions, a tattered cloak, a water skin, and a few handfuls of grain tucked away for later use. He found himself envying those who had managed to acquire more, small luxuries that seemed almost unattainable in their daily grind. The smell of food was both a blessing and a curse. It promised warmth and sustenance, but also served as a constant reminder of the endless labor awaiting him. As he dressed, his thoughts wandered back to home, to the promise of freedom and family that had once driven him into this life. Now those dreams seemed distant and unattainable. The smell of food mingled with memories, smoke from cooking fires on sunny days in Rome, laughter at evening meals shared with loved ones, the simple pleasure of a warm meal after hard labor. But reality was relentless. Duty called, and Marcus knew he had to focus. He grabbed his water skin, took one last deep breath of the lingering aroma, and stepped out into the Legion's courtyard. There, amidst the chaos of preparation, he joined others in their daily ritual, marching drills, weapon maintenance, and training exercises that ground each man deeper into the relentless cycle. The smell followed him everywhere, pervasive during meals, mingling with sweat as men pushed themselves to the limit through physical training. It was both a comfort and a torment, familiar enough not to be noticed much of the time, but sharp enough on occasion to remind them all that this was their reality, endless days of service under watchful eyes. As morning turned into afternoon, Marcus found himself amidst an endless series of tasks, repairing equipment, preparing rations, or tending to horses. Each moment felt like a drop in a vast sea, insignificant yet contributing to the larger whole. The smell of food was ever present, even as it took on new dimensions with each bite. Garlic bread at noon under the sun's intense gaze, hearty stews shared during evening breaks by flickering firelight. Yet amidst this grind, there were moments of connection, shared glances between veterans and newcomers, whispered jokes over meals. In these small interactions, Marcus found a semblance of humanity in his otherwise dehumanizing existence. The smell of food brought people together, creating bonds that ran deeper than the tasks they performed daily. As night finally began to fall, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Marcus made his way back to his corner, feeling both weary and strangely fulfilled. He lay down on his straw bed, closing his eyes but not quite sleeping, his mind racing with thoughts of home, duty, and a future that seemed just beyond reach. The smell of food lingered through the night, mingling with dreams of simpler times and distant hopes for change. As dawn broke once more, Marcus knew this was only another day in the endless cycle, but it was also something more, a testament to resilience, humanity's enduring spirit even amidst despair. As dawn broke once more, a thick mist clung to the ground like a shroud, its dampness seeping into every nook and cranny of the encampment. The air was heavy with dew, the scent sharp and clean, as if it had just been freshly washed by a hand unseen. A low droning hum filled your ears, mosquitoes buzzing, their tiny wings making a symphony in the pre-dawn darkness. Your blanket, thin and worn from countless washings and rewashings, was draped over you like an old friend. Its cotton fibers, now stiff with age, brushed against your skin with every breath. You shifted slightly to find more comfort, the weight of it settling on your shoulders as if trying to keep you anchored in place. A soft groan echoed through the encampment, a low, almost imperceptible sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a collective sigh of weary bodies, rising after another restless night spent under the cold sky. The leather straps of your sandals creaked as you struggled to sit up, their familiar shape providing just enough resistance to remind you where home should be. Marcus, your fellow centurion, sat next to you with his usual grim expression. He had barely slept, a habit that only seemed more pronounced in these early hours when the world was quiet and still. The weight of his heavy cloak, made from thick wool now ragged around the edges, pressed against your arm as if it were an anchor dragging him down. The smell of breakfast began to permeate the air, simple fare like bread and cheese, cooked over open fires that flickered with a life almost too small for them. The aroma was comforting in its simplicity, yet you couldn't help but notice how every soldier had his own unique way of preparing it, some adding salt liberally, others sprinkling olive oil to make the crust crisp. You reached out tentatively and grabbed your wooden spoon from where it lay beside a bowl of porridge. The spoon was rough with use, every dip leaving marks on both you and the vessel it served from. As you stirred, the sound echoed softly in the stillness before being swallowed by silence once more. Outside, soldiers began to stir as well, their movements slow but purposeful. One of them carried a large pitcher filled with water, its weight making his arms ache slightly. He poured directly into clay jars, each one settling onto a low table that had seen better days. The water was cold and clear, something precious in this land where the rivers ran murky. Another soldier nearby whistled softly to himself, humming a tune from home that seemed lost even as it lingered on your mind. His voice mingled with others, creating an eerie chorus of morning sounds, a blend of human activity trying to reclaim order before the day fully broke through. The sky had begun its transformation, shifting from deep indigo to hues of blue and gray. The sun was still hidden behind a veil of clouds, but its presence was felt in the gradual warmth that began to rise with it. It was a familiar sensation after so many days, sunlight coming not as much for illumination, but for permission, signaling what little work could be done before noon. Marcus leaned against his shield, his eyes fixed on something beyond your line of sight. You couldn't see where he gazed, yet you felt the tension in him, a quiet resolve that spoke volumes about how this man saw the world. "We must prepare," he said finally, not needing to explain what needed doing. You nodded, understanding even as it hadn't been spoken aloud. Preparing for another day meant more than just food and water. It was about readiness, muscles primed, armor polished, weapons sharpened. The task felt both simple and immense at the same time, a cycle that repeated itself without end, but one that defined you. As Marcus moved away to oversee preparations, his footsteps echoed softly on earth-hardened ground. You sat back, spoon still in hand, contemplating how much of this routine was by choice and how much was simply habit. The weight of your pack felt familiar as well, its contents not so different from day to day, but loaded with a sense of purpose that made every step feel heavy. The morning light continued to creep over the horizon, painting everything it touched in shades of gold and silver. Shadows lengthened and shortened, each one telling its own story underfoot. The sun finally appeared fully, casting long beams across the landscape like golden fingers reaching out for attention. A sense of normalcy settled around you as soldiers began their tasks, some setting up barriers to keep watch against potential threats, others sharpening tools or repairing equipment. There was a rhythm here that had become almost comforting despite its oppressive nature, a steady hum of activity that masked much, but still revealed the constant undercurrents of fear and tension. You looked at your hands, dirty from work, yet somehow still holding onto what little hope remained. The idea of returning home now seemed distant, perhaps even unattainable, but this was where you were for now. In this camp, surrounded by strangers turned comrades, facing each day with resolve, but also with a certain resignation that came only through repeated experience. As Marcus and others began to form into ranks, the weight of what lay ahead became palpable. Training exercises started slowly at first, simple drills designed not just for strength, but for endurance. Each movement was deliberate yet precise. Every step counted meticulously in order to prepare for whatever might come next. You joined in reluctantly, following orders more out of habit than conviction. The leather of your armor made a dull thud with each footfall as you marched alongside others. Your breath came in short gasps, the exertion making it hard to keep pace at first, but gradually becoming easier as bodies got used to the strain. The air around you felt heavy with anticipation, a mix of excitement and dread that clung together like dewdrops clinging to grass blades. The training ground was bare except for scattered boulders used for target practice, their surfaces smooth from years of use, yet still retaining a certain roughness under your fingers. As Marcus shouted commands, the sound seemed amplified by the surrounding silence, echoing softly off stone walls and into distant camps where others were likely doing much the same. The sense of camaraderie grew as soldiers fell into rhythm together, each movement synchronized almost perfectly despite individual differences in size or strength. You watched closely, learning from those around you while also keeping an eye on Marcus himself, who moved with a grace that belied his years and experience. His presence was both reassuring and intimidating, a reminder of the responsibilities carried by leaders versus followers alike. The drill continued for hours, various maneuvers designed to test not just physical limits, but mental fortitude as well. You found yourself pushing harder, challenging your own boundaries in ways you hadn't expected. Sweat began to form on brow and back, trickling down into clothes that clung uncomfortably against skin, now warm from exertion. By the end of it all, exhaustion settled over everyone like a shroud, muscles screaming for rest, but also craving something more, some greater purpose beyond mere survival. The sense of camaraderie deepened further as shared experiences bound soldiers together in ways hard to describe yet impossible to ignore. As you finally sat down on grass softened by recent rains, the weight of everything felt almost too much. But there was comfort here too, a recognition that even amidst hardship and struggle, human connection remained a beacon guiding through darkest nights. As dawn painted the sky with hues of pink and gold, your legion marched through the dusty streets of Capua, each step echoing under the heavy weight of armor and supplies. The sun climbed higher into a cloudless sky, casting its merciless gaze upon you all. Sweat began to bead on foreheads, muscles tensed against the heat that seemed to seep right through your tunic. The journey was not just physical, it was a daily battle with every aspect of Roman life in this harsh land. The legionnaires marched silently, their eyes ahead, minds lost in thoughts of home or dreams of freedom. You glanced around at them, men from the farthest corners of the empire, united by nothing but chains and shared suffering. Each man carried his own story, each scar a testament to struggle. The heat intensified with every mile, the air thick with dust kicked up by sandals on the cobblestones. Some men lagged behind, gasping for breath as their bodies rebelled against the relentless march. A few collapsed altogether, and you saw your comrades lift them back onto their feet, dragging them along without complaint. Your mind wandered to thoughts of home, brief snippets of familiar scenes that seemed almost unattainable now. But then reality snapped into focus. You were here, a part of this legion, bound by duty and the hope for survival through the brutal daily grind. The day wore on, each hour stretching out endlessly under the sun's glare. You found solace in small moments, shadows thrown from large buildings providing fleeting relief, brief conversations with fellow soldiers about trivial matters that momentarily lifted spirits, a shared meal of sparse rations under the stars at night. These were your lifelines amidst the relentless toil. At one point, you passed by a group of slaves working in the fields. Their lives seemed even more wretched than yours, barely clothed and forced into labor from dawn till dusk. It was a grim reminder that despite shared struggle, some had it worse still. Yet seeing their resilience gave you hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, there were others fighting for better days too. As night fell, the Legion encamped under an open sky, a temporary respite from relentless heat and constant toil. The camp bustled with activity as men gathered around fires, sharing meager rations and stories of home. Laughter rang out occasionally, if only for brief moments before reality returned in full force. But even within these fleeting escapes, shadows crept into your thoughts about the next day's march, about the ever-present threat of starvation or injury, about the constant strain on body and spirit. The weather did more than just heat. It controlled every aspect of your existence, from when you could rest to whether food would be adequate for another day. In this relentless cycle, moments of connection and shared struggle became precious. A nod of understanding between veterans and rookies, a hand held tightly in support during the march. These were the bonds that kept spirits alive amidst despair. You realized then that while fate controlled many aspects of your life, it was human resilience and solidarity that offered any chance for hope. The night passed slowly, punctuated by restless dreams and half-remembered sounds from the surrounding camp. As dawn approached once more, you felt a mix of dread and determination, dread at what lay ahead, but also a resolve to face another day with whatever strength remained within you. For now, though, there was just this moment, a brief pause in an unending march, and in it you found a glimmer of humanity amidst the brutality. The air was thick and heavy with the scent of night-blooming flowers that clung to your clothes as you moved through them, a soft fragrance like honeyed dreams. The sound of crickets chirped a constant lullaby in the distance, their music punctuated by occasional yips from stray dogs seeking warmth near any open fires. Your fingers were numb with cold, encased tightly within leather gloves that seemed to amplify every chill and vibration. You rubbed them together vigorously, trying to coax some heat back into your hands. You had been marching for hours, the wooden soles of your sandals creaking in unison with all the other legionaries as you trudged through the night. The path was narrow and winding, a forgotten track that snaked its way down into the hills. It felt like 1,000 years ago, yet it could have been just last week. Time was slippery here, moving in strange and unpredictable ways. The weight of your armor pressed heavily upon you, each step an effort to keep from toppling over. You had worn this same heavy cloak for so many nights that the wool no longer felt like a blanket, but rather another part of yourself, coiling around your body as you slept on the hard ground. The leather belt was snug against your waist, holding in place not just your weapons and tools, but also a certain sense of purpose, of belonging to something greater than yourself. As you walked, your breath came out in puffs that seemed to linger in the air like tiny ghostly fingers. Each exhalation left behind its own cloud of moisture, soon to be swallowed up by the night. You wondered if anyone else could see them, or if they were just another part of this endless darkness. The silence was almost deafening at times. It pressed down on you until your ears ached with the absence of sound. Yet in that stillness, small noises stood out more sharply than ever before, the distant rustle of leaves as some wild beast scurried by, or perhaps just another legionary taking an uneasy rest beneath his cloak. A chill wind picked up suddenly, sending shivers down your spine and making you tuck yourself deeper into the sheltering fabric of your cloak. The weight of it all, of this night, these endless marches, the constant toil that seemed to make every moment a battle simply to survive, began to settle around you like a burden. You stopped for just a moment, leaning against a tree trunk and feeling its rough bark beneath your hands. It was here, in these small respite moments, that you allowed yourself a brief glimpse of what lay beyond the brutality, the softness of earth underfoot, the gentle sway of branches overhead, even the faint smell of something green growing wild amidst the stones. As you stood there, leaning against that ancient tree and feeling its strength beneath your fingers, you noticed the faintest shimmer in the air, a glow not unlike the first hints of dawn. It was barely visible, but it seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if hinting at something greater beyond this endless march. And then, just like that, another legionary appeared beside you, another soul seeking respite from the night's cold embrace. He wore his armor in a way that suggested he hadn't bothered taking off much, perhaps not even his helmet. His breath was visible too, but it seemed to come out in more ragged gasps than yours. "Still awake?" your companion asked, voice barely audible over the constant background noise of crickets and wind. You nodded silently, trying to keep as still as possible. No need for unnecessary words when there were already so many things demanding attention. "Thought I'd catch some fresh air," you replied eventually, though it felt like a cliché even then. Your companion made a non-committal sound, more of an exhalation than anything else. He adjusted his cloak slightly and leaned against the tree beside you. The two of you stood in silence for what seemed to be ages, just two bodies amidst the endless night, sharing this momentary respite from the march that never truly stopped. The glow began to grow stronger now, a gentle light that cut through some of the darkness like the first hints of dawn breaking on the horizon. It was almost comforting in its way, a reminder that even here, among the shadows and burdens, there were still small glimmers of hope. And then, from somewhere not too far away, came the sound of voices, low, urgent tones speaking in a language you couldn't quite place, but felt vaguely familiar. You exchanged another glance with your companion before both of you moved closer to investigate, the tree between you offering some semblance of cover as you strained to make out more details. The glow was coming from an ancient stone that stood slightly off-path, a crude circle etched into its surface, surrounded by a scattering of small stones and pebbles. Beside it huddled several figures, their forms barely visible in the dark, but unmistakably human, records keepers perhaps, though you couldn't be sure. One of them raised his head suddenly, eyes wide with something that might have been fear or desperation. "Silence," he cried out hoarsely before clamping a hand over his mouth and lowering himself back down again. The others around him shushed each other quietly, but quickly returned to their whispered conversation. You shared another look with your companion, both of you weighing the risks against what might be gained from intervention. But even as the record's keeper's voice carried across the night air in a plea for help, something stopped you, something older and more primal than any rational thought or calculation. For now, though, there was just this moment, a brief pause in an unending march, and in it you found a glimmer of humanity amidst the brutality. In the dead of night, your heart pounded against your chest as you lay hidden beneath the tattered cloak that served as both cover and shroud from the chill air. The only sound came from a distant stream, its gentle babble masking any attempt at stealth. As if summoned by the voice you had heard, shadows began to stir around you, faint silhouettes of soldiers in their heavy armor, hunched under the weight of their weapons as they moved quietly through the encampment. You recognized them. These were the legions of Rome, stalwart guardians of an empire built on conquest and strength. Yet here was a side of them that seemed untouched by such veneers, men who moved like ghosts in the dark, silent as night itself. They paused near you, their breath visible against the frigid air, before continuing to their appointed posts. The ground beneath your cloak trembled slightly when one soldier shifted his weight or another's boot struck a stone. Your mind raced. Thoughts of escape and survival clashed with the growing realization that this was not just an ordinary night in the Legion. There was something different, a sense of urgency, a fear that you could almost taste. A soft cry from your left sent shivers down your spine. It wasn't a plea for help, but more like a warning, a low growl that cut through the silence. The air seemed to thicken with an unspoken threat as another shadow emerged, this one not of a soldier, but something else entirely. A creature of night and shadows, its form barely discernible in the half-light. You held your breath, praying it was just a trick of the darkness or perhaps some animal that had been drawn by the voices. But then came another growl, louder this time, closer. It echoed with an ancient ferocity, and you felt the very air crackle with its presence. It wasn't until the first light of dawn began to filter through the encampment that you realized what was happening. The shadows had stopped moving, had ceased their patrol entirely, and now they stood still as stone, facing a single point in the distance where the ground seemed to tremble under an unseen weight. It was as if all life within the Legion had been held in check by some invisible force. And then it came, a sound that sent chills through every man and woman who dared breathe. A voice like none you had ever heard before, deep and resonant, yet filled with a primal sorrow. Silence, it commanded, its tone carrying an authority that no weapon could match. The soldiers' eyes widened as they turned to face the source of this power. They stood there, frozen in place, their weapons dropped to the ground, as if the command had stripped them of all will and strength. One by one, they bowed their heads, accepting whatever fate lay ahead. You watched it all unfold from your hidden vantage point, feeling a mix of fear, awe, and a strange sense of connection. This was not just about survival or even freedom. This was about understanding the depths to which humanity could sink and rise when faced with forces that seemed beyond their control. As dawn broke fully over the encampment, you knew that your journey would never be the same again. The night had revealed truths that no amount of training or discipline could prepare you for. In those fleeting moments, when all was quiet and still, a glimpse of something greater, something untouchable by the brutality of daily life in the Legion, had found its way into your heart. With the first light came a new resolve, not just to survive, but perhaps even to fight back against the darkness that threatened both you and those around you. The night the record keepers were silenced was far from over, and what lay ahead promised to be as brutal as it was complex, a struggle between duty, fear, and the ever-present shadow of what truly lurked in the heart of man. The warmth of the fire crackled softly under your fingers, a comforting weight that settled like old friends after long separations. The flames danced in flickering light across the rough stone walls, casting shadows that whispered secrets into corners you couldn't quite see. A slow, gentle hum came from outside, the creaking and groaning of an ancient legionary camp, alive with quiet stories. You leaned back against a wooden wall adorned with faded murals depicting battles won and lost, the paint flaking like old memories. The air was thick with the scent of cooking meat, mingling with the faint odor of sweat and something else, something earthy and musty that clung to everything here, as if it were part of the very fabric of the night itself. The smell of roasted lamb wafted through the air, spiced with garlic and herbs. It filled your nostrils in a way that was both familiar and foreign, a reminder of home, yet so far away now. You picked up a small, wooden spoon from where it lay beside you on the rough stone floor. Its smooth surface seemed to hum under your touch, as if it too held some memory of better days. You began to stir the stew in a large iron pot that hung over the fire by its handle. The metal was cold against your hand at first, but soon warmed up with each turn you made. The spoon clattered softly on the bottom as it stirred through layers of broth and vegetables, their textures melding into something comforting yet complex. Outside, a distant wolf howled, a lonely voice in the darkness that seemed to echo across centuries. You shivered slightly, not from cold, but from a chill that ran deeper than mere temperature. The sounds of night, snoring legionaries, soft rustles as animals prowled close by, all blended together into an orchestra of life and death. A small coin purse lay nearby on the ground, its leather worn smooth over time. You traced your finger along one edge, feeling the familiar weight that promised something tangible to hold onto in this vast sea of uncertainty. Inside it was a few copper coins, enough for tomorrow's rations, but not much more than that. You set down the spoon and picked up the coin purse instead, its cool metal giving way slightly under your grip. You opened it carefully, feeling each coin as if they were old friends you hadn't seen in years. One by one, you counted them out, 5 bronze coins, their edges worn but still gleaming with a faint metallic sheen. The firelight played tricks on the surface of the coins, casting shadows that seemed to whisper warnings or promises depending on how you looked at it. A small piece of leather fell from your pocket onto the ground, a fragment, perhaps, or maybe just part of another dream. You picked up the leather and examined it closely. It was worn thin in some spots, but still held its shape well enough. You traced a finger along one edge, where a single thread had been carefully sewn on to reinforce an old tear that had almost split the purse entirely apart. The warmth of your hand seeped into the leather, making it feel more than just material. It felt like something personal, intimate. A soft snore drifted in from somewhere nearby, a distant echo of humanity trying to find solace in sleep after a long and brutal day. You let out a slow breath, feeling the tension slowly leave your shoulders as you settled deeper into the moment. The weight of responsibility that had pressed so heavily on you for years began to lift just enough to allow some peace. The fire hissed softly, settling into its own rhythm, a gentle lullaby sung in tongues long forgotten. Shadows crept closer around you, wrapping themselves like old friends who knew your every thought and fear. Outside, the wolf howled again, this time a bit closer, almost as if it were trying to communicate something. You closed your eyes for just a moment, letting yourself drift into that familiar state of half-waking where dreams could slip through like water between fingers. The firelight danced across your eyelids, casting moving shapes and shadows that seemed almost alive. In this space, the world outside faded away entirely until all that mattered was you and the warmth around you. A soft breeze filtered in from a nearby window, cool enough to stir the embers, but not cold enough to make them die out completely. It carried with it hints of something distant, a scent perhaps, or just an idea too vague to grasp fully, but it felt like home somehow, comforting even as it was different. You opened your eyes again and looked around at the camp. Everyone else was asleep now, heads drooping on their shields, blankets draped loosely over them in a way that made each one look so much more vulnerable than you had ever seen before. They were just people after all, trying to survive day by day without any guarantees. A small smile played on your lips as you turned back toward the fire. The world outside was vast and full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered, some good, some bad, but for tonight it could wait. For now there was only this moment, a simple, quiet night in a Roman legion camp where even the bravest among them found moments of peace. Outside, another wolf howled, its voice echoing across the stillness like a distant promise. You took one last look at your coin purse and then set it gently aside on the ground beside you. With a final exhale, you leaned back against the stone wall once more, closing your eyes for what felt like the first time in months. In this moment of peace, everything seemed possible, everything except waking up again tomorrow with the same brutal reality staring back at you. But that was all right too, a reminder that even if nothing else changed tonight, maybe just being alive could be enough to carry on through another day. In the silent stillness that followed his musings, he drifted into a fitful sleep, waking only when the first pale fingers of dawn began to tug at the edges of the night's dark shroud. The sky was an uneven canvas of deep indigo and lighter shades of grey, hinting at what lay beyond the horizon. He lay there for moments longer than he cared to admit, basking in the fleeting luxury of peace before it was time to rise. He stretched his limbs, feeling each muscle quiver from hours spent in rigid positions, a testament to the harsh reality that awaited him once more. With a deep sigh, he swung himself up and began the ritualistic process of preparing for another day. His tunic, torn and stained with sweat and dirt, was nothing but an uncomfortable reminder of his place here, where men were expected to endure pain without complaint. He moved towards the small basin near his cot, splashing water onto his face in hopes of waking himself up fully. The cool touch on his cheeks served as a stark contrast to the warmth that had clung to him during the night. As he leaned back against the cold stone wall, he couldn't help but think about what lay ahead. The day began with a call for breakfast, a meager affair of stale bread and watery broth served in large communal bowls. He ate quickly, not daring to linger over his food. Every moment saved was another moment closer to the grueling tasks that awaited him. The other men around him were similarly preoccupied. Some whispered plans about their families back home, others simply staring into space as if lost in thought. After breakfast came training, a never-ending cycle of running and marching under a relentless sun, all while being watched by his commanding officer with an unsettling intensity. Each movement was scrutinized, each mistake amplified. The harsh words that followed were like the first drops of rain on parched earth, unavoidable and inevitable. He pushed through it all, knowing that even in defeat, he had earned a measure of respect for enduring. In between these sessions lay brief respites, moments when soldiers might discuss their pasts or speculate about the future, a rare opportunity to feel more than just soldiers. Yet such camaraderie was fleeting. One wrong word could ruin it all. So they kept silent, each man and woman a fortress behind closed lips. And then there were the tasks, menial duties that seemed endless in their repetition. Fetching water from distant wells, chopping wood for the mess hall, repairing sandals or shields, a never-ending list of chores that ensured no one was idle, but few found satisfaction in their work. Each task demanded focus and strength. Failure meant punishment. By evening, exhaustion had set in like a heavy cloak, weighing down his shoulders as he made his way back to the barracks. The air inside was thick with dust and sweat, mingling with the faint scent of oil from lamps that flickered weakly overhead. He found himself drawn towards one cot, his own, a testament to how intimately he had become with this space. He lay down on it now, staring up at the ceiling, trying in vain to make sense of everything that defined his existence here. The brutality was undeniable. Each day seemed a battle just to hold on, but there were moments of hope too, moments when he allowed himself to dream about freedom or family back home. And yet, as he lay there, the weight of tomorrow pressed down upon him with an iron hand. He knew that no matter how hard he fought today, it would all come crashing down again in the morning, a cycle without end save for death itself. The thought was both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it meant accepting this fate. Liberating because perhaps, just maybe, even within such confines, there could be moments of dignity. As sleep finally claimed him, he whispered a silent vow that no matter what came tomorrow, today would still stand as something more than mere survival. Today was his choice, a small rebellion against the brutal reality that surrounded him, and for now, it was enough to carry on through another day. The warmth of the hearth crackled softly against the chill of night air, its steady hum a familiar lullaby that settled over you like a soft blanket. The weight of your cloak felt comforting around you as it pressed down on your shoulders and wrapped tightly around your waist. You breathed in deeply, inhaling not just the scent of pine from the logs burning merrily inside, but also hints of sweat and old leather, everyday odors that spoke to the enduring nature of life here. Outside, the world lay hushed under a blanket of stars, each one casting its pale glow through the open door. The night wind whispered secrets in your ear as it brushed past you, cool against your skin, stirring the hem of your tunic and causing it to flutter ever so slightly. You leaned forward into this gentle breeze for a moment longer before retreating back inside. The smell of wood smoke lingered heavily in the air, mingling with that tangy note from the stew simmering on the hearthstone, a slow-cooked mix of beans and vegetables, seasoned just right to offset their humble origins. The warmth from the fire began to seep through your cloak, soothing you as if to say, "You are safe here." Sitting by the fireplace, you picked up a piece of parchment that had been resting on the edge of one of the wooden chairs. It was a letter, its rough surface familiar with age and handling. You traced over it with a finger, feeling the slight ridges from the quills used to write such words centuries ago. Today was his choice, a small rebellion against the brutal reality that surrounded him, and for now, it was enough to carry on through another day. Yet as you sat there, those simple words echoed in your mind. Enough seemed like an illusion when faced with the relentless march of time and the daily grind. A knock at the door made a sudden noise, jarring from its stillness. It was soft but deliberate, a polite reminder that the world outside existed even as you sought shelter within these walls. You set the letter aside, feeling its weight in your palm as if holding onto something fragile yet strong. Opening the door revealed a soldier, his presence both familiar and distant. He carried a bundle of stones, large ones secured with leather thongs. His armor was clean but worn, its metal gleaming faintly under the starlight. He stepped inside, depositing the bundle at your feet before speaking in a measured tone. "Centurion requested these be brought to the barracks," he said, his voice steady and professional despite the chill of night air seeping into the room. You nodded, taking up one stone from the pile. It was heavy yet cool to touch, its surface rough but smooth where it had been handled repeatedly over time. You could see small scratches here and there, remnants of stories etched by countless hands before yours. The weight in your hand felt almost comforting, grounded. "Thank you," you replied simply, then gestured for him to leave the rest with you as he bowed slightly and exited quietly. The door closed behind him, a soft click marking its passage from open to shut. You turned back towards the hearth, letting your gaze drift across the room filled with familiar sights, the wooden table by the window where tasks were completed in daylight, the leather-bound books propped up against walls for reference during idle moments, and scattered around on shelves or chests, items too precious to leave behind. Yet even amidst these quiet reminders of human endeavor, there was an underlying tension. The stones held a story you couldn't quite grasp yet, a mystery cloaked in layers of history waiting to be unraveled. And perhaps that was why they had been brought here, to this place where the weight of time seemed lighter under the protection of warmth and light. You placed one stone on each chair, feeling their individual weights, as if placing each memory into its proper place. These stones representing more than mere construction, they were pieces of a puzzle waiting to be pieced together. Each one carried whispers of past hands, stories untold yet tangible in their very existence. As you returned the last stone to your tunic pocket, a gesture that seemed both insignificant and profound, the fire cast long shadows dancing across walls. These shadows moved almost as if living entities, playing tricks on your eyes with flickers of light that gave life to what was otherwise stillness. Your fingers brushed against a smooth leather-bound book by chance, the history of the legions perhaps. Its cover worn, but its pages holding tales of battles won and lost, leaders risen and fallen. You pulled it out gently, turning its brittle pages over as if they might crumble at any moment under too much scrutiny. Inside were accounts of daily life, drills conducted, orders issued, punishments meted out, all chronicled in meticulous detail. You found yourself tracing lines with a finger, feeling the texture of ink against paper, a reminder that every word had been written by someone once living and breathing just as you did now. These men who wrote history, what were their hopes? Their fears? The daily grind they endured to preserve order amidst chaos. The room seemed less like a place of duty than sanctuary in its own right tonight, safe from the harsh realities outside. Yet those same stones that lay scattered around held more than mere structural importance. They hinted at secrets buried beneath layers of time. You wondered about them. What if these weren't just walls, but containers holding untold narratives? What if each stone represented not just physical weight, but also emotional burdens carried by countless souls before yours? Your thoughts drifted towards the letter you had left behind earlier, now resting once more on your lap. Its contents were simple enough, a brief message from a friend far away, yet even such small comforts felt precious in this vast expanse of soldierly life. Reaching out again to retrieve it, fingers brushing across leather and ink, you unfolded its pages carefully. Words written by another hand, long since departed, tales of camaraderie forged through shared hardships, hopes for brighter days ahead despite the darkness surrounding them. They spoke not just to intellect, but also emotion, real connections formed within this crucible called duty. As you read further, lines blurring together in half-lit light, each word resonated deeply. You are not alone. Simple yet profound, a reminder that even amidst the brutality of Legion life, there were bonds worth fighting for. Bonds forged by sweat and shared hardships, not just physical but emotional too. With renewed resolve, you tucked away the letter back into its envelope, pressing it against your chest, as if to hold onto warmth it emanated. Warmth not only from human connection, but also those small comforts found in daily routine amidst relentless adversity. It was these tiny things that kept hope alive when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. Outside, stars continued their watchful gaze unblinking, while inside, fire crackled steadily, providing a steady glow casting shadows across walls. The weight of the stones seemed less burdensome now, more like anchors holding back currents, threatening to engulf all in despair. You allowed yourself another moment here, sitting by hearth, surrounded by remnants of past struggles and victories alike. In this place, where history mingled with present, where stone met flesh, you felt a strange sense of belonging, a reminder that even amidst brutality, humanity persisted through bonds forged under shared burdens. Closing your eyes for just an instant longer, you let the warmth seep deeper into bones, feeling momentarily whole again before rising to continue work already nearly completed. Stone by stone, perhaps they would uncover truths buried beneath layers of time. But tonight all that mattered was present moment filled with quiet comfort and familiar routine. You stepped outside, stars still watching overhead. Tonight's task complete. Tomorrow held another set of challenges, waiting patiently along worn paths leading forward into uncertain future. But for now, you were here, safe within walls built by hands now silent, yet voices whispering ever so faintly through stone and time. As the day broke, casting light on newly uncovered truths, shadows lengthened across stone floorboards, while first hints of morning greeted your senses. A soft rustle outside marked approach of dawn, bringing with it promise of new beginnings amidst ongoing struggle. Through stone and time, the walls lay hidden beneath centuries of dust and dirt, their secrets safeguarded by layers of neglect and silence. The first rays of sunlight filtered through a small aperture in the ceiling, casting an ethereal glow that seemed to caress the ancient stones as if awakening them from a long slumber. With practiced hands, the team worked meticulously, chipping away at the masonry with precision and care. The walls were thick and substantial, built not just for defense, but also to withstand the relentless elements of time itself. As they progressed, remnants of Roman craftsmanship became visible, finely dressed limestone blocks, intricately designed friezes that depicted scenes from everyday life in the legionary fort, and even faint traces of frescoes hinting at a vibrant past. A sudden halt came when they uncovered a narrow passage leading deeper into the structure. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and something more. Perhaps it was a mixture of mold and decay that clung to every crevice, or perhaps it was simply the overwhelming silence that had been broken by their intrusion. Either way, it felt as if they were entering another world entirely. The passage was barely wide enough for one person at a time, and its low ceiling required them to crawl on all fours. The light from outside dimmed significantly here, replaced by an eerie, almost ghostly glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Their flashlights cut through this darkness, illuminating various artifacts, pottery shards, fragments of writing tablets, and even a partially preserved leather shoe. As they continued their exploration, the passage opened up into what appeared to be a small chamber. The floor was uneven and covered in layers of ash, dust, and scattered bones that seemed too fresh for such an ancient structure. In one corner stood a crude wooden bed frame, its wood weathered but still intact enough to reveal the original craftsmanship. It wasn't until they reached another door at the far end of the chamber that their hearts began racing with anticipation. The door was ornately carved and sealed shut by thick layers of mortar. Using crowbars and picks, they managed to break through just enough to peek inside without causing irreparable damage. What greeted them exceeded all expectations. Inside lay a trove of items, pots filled with dried herbs and grains, leather pouches containing coins and small trinkets, scrolls wrapped in linen, and even a few personal mementos. A broken but still recognizable comb made from boar tusks, a set of keys bound together by a simple chain, and an intricately carved wooden figurine that appeared to depict a soldier. The most significant discovery came when they uncovered a small alcove behind the door. Inside lay a series of diaries written in Latin, carefully preserved for over 2 millennia on papyrus scrolls. Each page was brittle yet still legible, chronicling daily life within the legionary fort during times both peaceful and tumultuous. As they carefully extracted one scroll after another, it became clear that these documents held not only historical value, but also personal stories of those who had lived here long ago. There were tales of victory in battle, moments of joy shared among comrades, and even accounts of darker days when food was scarce or morale low. The team worked late into the night, their hands trembling slightly as they deciphered each word with reverence for what lay before them. By dawn's light, every scroll had been removed, its contents recorded meticulously in notebooks provided by archaeologists from nearby universities eager to collaborate on this unprecedented find. Exhausted but exhilarated, the group took a moment to step back and survey their work. The walls still stood, albeit now partially exposed, and revealing more of what lay hidden within them than anyone could have imagined. It was a testament not only to Roman engineering prowess, but also to human resilience, proof that even in the darkest of times, there remained threads of hope and continuity. As they prepared to seal up the passages once again, a collective sense of awe hung heavy among them. The journey through stone and time had yielded more than just historical artifacts. It had uncovered stories of strength and survival that spoke directly to their own experiences as modern-day scholars dedicated to uncovering truths buried deep beneath layers of history. With renewed purpose and anticipation for what might yet be discovered, the team set about restoring order to the site. Yet even in these final moments, the weight of their discoveries lingered like an echo from another era, a reminder that despite all changes over time, certain aspects of humanity endure unaltered by the passage of stone or shadow. The warmth of a crackling fire tickles your nose with its sweet resinous scent, mingled with the faint hint of roasting meats and freshly baked bread. The sound of soft, steady breathing surrounds you, your own perhaps, or those around you in this ancient camp. It's a familiar rhythm now, almost comforting as it lulls away thoughts of the day's toils. You sit by that fire, holding your cloak tightly against the cool night air, feeling its weight settle into your lap like an old friend. The earth beneath you shifts slightly under your touch, a soft, spongy bed made from dry leaves and twigs layered over the hard ground. You rub your hands together, warming them in the firelight before tucking them between your knees. The stars above blaze a brilliant white against a deep indigo sky, their light twinkling like tiny embers floating high up beyond reach. The air carries with it the distant call of an owl, its voice sharp and clear, a sound that feels both ancient and timeless, as if it had always been there to fill these quiet hours. Your mind drifts back over the day's events, Your hands still ache from chopping wood earlier, the knife leaving deep grooves in your palms. You can almost feel those marks now, rough and red, under the warmth of the firelight. Your fingers curl around the wooden handle as if it were a familiar friend, seeking comfort. The silence is profound here, so much that even breathing feels like a deliberate act, a slow inhalation followed by an equally measured exhalation. There's no urgency, no need for sudden actions, just this calm stillness where every moment stretches out endlessly into the night. You lean back against your makeshift pillow of fur and fabric, feeling its soft texture beneath you. It presses gently into your spine, providing a slight support as if to keep you upright even in sleep. Your head rests on one arm propped up by an elbow, the other hand hanging down loosely between your legs. The weight of it all settles around you like a protective blanket. Yet even in these final moments, the weight of their discoveries lingered like an echo from another era, a reminder that despite all changes over time, certain aspects of humanity endure unaltered by the passage of stone or shadow. These secrets, hidden away for centuries and only now brought to light through careful research, feel both sacred and profoundly human. You shift slightly in your seat, the movement sending a cascade of small sparks popping as they hit the tinder beneath them. The fire crackles softly, its light dancing across the faces of those around you, faces that might look much like yours if only their eyes could open to see this moment again. You can almost hear them whispering through the silence, their questions and doubts and hopes all captured in a single glowing embers. A small log shifts near your foot, causing it to clatter against another piece of wood. The sound is surprisingly loud for such a quiet night, but you ignore it as you close your eyes. There's no need to open them. Your mind has already wandered far enough away from the physical world into this realm where history and fantasy merge. In that space between waking and sleeping, thoughts swirl together like mist around an ancient temple. You imagine yourself wandering through time itself, a ghostly figure moving silently past forgotten ruins and hidden tombs. Each step you take seems to carry with it fragments of knowledge, pieces scattered across the centuries, until finally they come together in your mind. You see them now, those who worked tirelessly day after day to uncover these truths, their fingers stained by ink and their hands worn from turning pages too many times. You feel a kinship with them, this shared struggle against the encroaching silence of history that threatens to erase all memory. But what if you could go back? What if instead of piecing together scattered clues like a puzzle, you could step directly into those moments themselves, walk among these ancient minds, and watch as they discovered things that changed everything? Your breath hovers in the cool air for a moment before fading away, almost invisible. The fire continues to burn steadily nearby, its light casting long shadows across your face. You close your eyes once more, allowing yourself to fully surrender to this peaceful state. In these final moments of wakefulness, you find comfort not just in the warmth and stillness, but also in that nagging question, what if? It's a simple enough thought, almost trivial when placed against the vast sweep of time. Yet somehow it feels profound here, surrounded by this quiet campfire light. The ground shifts again beneath your feet, sending tiny vibrations through you as something moves nearby. A small animal perhaps, or maybe just another soldier shifting in his sleep. The sound is so subtle that for a moment you wonder if anyone else even notices. But then the firelight catches on something metallic, a coin perhaps, glinting softly against the darkness. It's a tiny thing, really, no bigger than your thumbprint. You reach out slowly to grasp it, feeling its cool surface against your fingers as if it were alive with some forgotten purpose. For a moment, you hold it there in your palm, turning it over and over again under the firelight until every curve is familiar. And then, without warning, something shifts inside you, a spark of realization perhaps, that this isn't just any coin at all, but one that might belong to those very people whose secrets you're uncovering. It could be a key, just a small piece of evidence linking past and present in ways no one has yet imagined. With renewed curiosity, you tuck the coin away safely into your cloak pocket, its weight settling there like an anchor reminding you why exactly it matters so much even now when all is quiet around you. The fire crackles softly once more, as if to acknowledge this new discovery buried deep within the folds of history, waiting patiently for someone brave enough to find it. You lean back again against that soft pillow and allow yourself to drift away into sleep, dreams filled with whispers from long ago, secrets untold, but now yours to uncover. In your dreams, you find yourself back within the ancient encampment where you first began to delve into the daily life of a Roman legionary. The silence is almost deafening as you walk through rows upon rows of wooden huts and stone barracks that now rest in ruins under the weight of centuries. The air carries with it an eerie chill, thickened by the remnants of 1,000 stories yet untold. You pass by the granaries where wheat had been stored for months to provide sustenance during the harsh winters, only to find them filled instead with dust and debris. You can hear distant voices, not from living men, but from echoes of conversations long past, of soldiers complaining about their meager rations, of officers barking orders that seemed as meaningless then as they do now. As you approach the area where the legionaries trained in combat drills, a sense of fear begins to gnaw at your mind. You can feel the ground beneath you trembling with every step, as if it remembers the countless footfalls of recruits learning to march and fight like machines. The smell of sweat and blood is overpowering, mingling with the faint hint of incense used in rituals that sought to appease the gods. Suddenly, you find yourself standing at the entrance of a large stone building that once served as the headquarters for the Legion's commanding officer. The heavy wooden doors are slightly ajar, creaking ominously under their own weight. Pushing them open with difficulty, you step inside and feel an overwhelming sense of dread wash over you. In the center of the room stands a large table covered in maps and scrolls that seem to pulse with an inner light, revealing details about battles fought long ago, strategies laid out for soldiers who never had a chance. You reach out tentatively towards one particularly intricate scroll, but just as your fingers touch it, you are jolted awake by the sound of thunder outside. Breathing heavily, you sit up in bed and realize that your dream was more vivid than ever before. As you lay there in silence, thoughts swirl through your mind about what those secrets might be, what brutal truths about daily life in a Roman legion could have been concealed for so long. You wonder if the answers lie within these very walls, or perhaps hidden among the scattered fragments of history waiting to be pieced together once more. Deciding that you cannot rest until you start unraveling this mystery, you get up and head towards your desk, where you keep a stack of old books and journals. Among them is an ancient leather-bound volume with faded writing on its cover, The Brutal Daily Reality of Life in a Roman Legion. You take it into your hands and run your fingers over the worn pages, feeling as though they might whisper secrets to you if only given a chance. Opening the book slowly, you come across a series of sketches depicting scenes from everyday life within the camp. There are images of soldiers preparing meals by lantern light, practicing drills under moonlight, and even sleeping on straw mattresses that seem more like torture devices than beds. Each drawing is accompanied by notes written in elegant calligraphy, descriptions so detailed they make you feel as though you can almost hear the creaks and groans of life within those walls. As you continue flipping through the pages, your eyes catch a passage near the end of the book that reads, "In times of hardship, when food is scarce and hope seems lost, it is in these small moments, sharing meager rations with comrades, finding brief respite from duty, that true camaraderie blossoms." Even among the bloodstains and broken dreams, there are echoes of humanity. This final note resonates deeply within you, reminding you that even amid such brutality, soldiers managed to find connections with one another despite their dire circumstances. It serves as both a poignant reminder of human resilience and a challenge to uncover more about those who lived through these hardships. With renewed determination, you close the book carefully and place it back on your desk before getting ready for another day dedicated entirely to this quest. The weight of history hangs heavily upon you now, yet with each new discovery, pieces fall into place, gradually painting a clearer picture of life within those ancient walls that have long since faded from memory. As dawn breaks outside your window, casting golden light across the room, you feel both invigorated and burdened by what lies ahead. The secrets waiting to be uncovered are not just about past struggles, but also about understanding human nature, how people survive even when faced with insurmountable odds. You know that this journey will demand patience, perseverance, and perhaps most importantly, an unwavering commitment to the truth. With a deep breath and steady resolve, you prepare yourself for what promises to be another challenging yet rewarding day in your quest to uncover 3 secrets that survived a century of silence, secrets that may finally shed light on some of history's darkest chapters. The cool night air whispers through the camp like a gentle caress on your skin, carrying with it an aroma of wet earth and smoke from a nearby fire pit where grains sizzle softly in a bronze pot. You pause for a moment, allowing this familiar scent to envelop you fully before stepping closer to the hearth. The warmth seeps into your bones, making even the chill of evening seem comforting. You sit down on a wooden stool next to the flames, feeling its rough surface under your hands as you set aside your tunic and settle in for some quiet time with a small scroll clutched tightly between your fingers. The parchment feels slightly damp from being rolled up and stored away during the day's duties. You unroll it slowly, letting the inked words dance before your eyes like old friends. The fire crackles softly behind you, its light casting shadows that play across the faces of fellow legionaries gathered around this central hearth. Their voices murmur in low tones as they share stories from their long day's work, stories of battles won and lost, victories celebrated, and defeats mourned. The sound is soothing, almost hypnotic, but you find yourself drawn back to your own scroll. The lamplight flickers gently on the parchment, illuminating a series of symbols that seem almost sacred in their complexity. These are not ordinary texts. They belong to a select group within the Legion tasked with uncovering hidden truths from ancient archives and forgotten tombs. You have been chosen for this task because of your keen eye and unwavering dedication. The scroll you hold is part of a quest initiated by Marcus, the centurion who commands the Legion's intelligence wing. 3 secrets are said to exist, secrets that could change everything we know about our past. Your mission: to find these 3 documents before anyone else does. The pressure of this task hangs heavy on your shoulders, but there is something oddly exhilarating in the secrecy and challenge. As you study the symbols more closely, a small smile tugs at the corners of your mouth. These are not just any scrolls, they hold power far beyond their inked text. Each one represents a piece of knowledge that could shift paradigms, alter doctrines, or even rewrite history itself. It is both terrifying and thrilling to think about what these secrets might reveal. A soft groan from beside you draws your attention away from the scroll for just an instant. Your friend, Lucius, shifts on his stool, trying to get comfortable in the growing chill of night. His tunic hangs loosely over his broad shoulders as he stretches out, rubbing his arms to ward off a shiver. "Another long day," he asks without turning towards you. The words are low and sleepy, yet they carry an underlying tone of weariness that is familiar to both of you after years in the Legion. You nod silently, knowing exactly how he feels. Your muscles ache from countless hours spent crawling through dark tunnels and dodging patrols at night. The physical demands have worn down even your strongest warriors into shadows of what they once were, exhausted but determined. Lucius lets out a soft sigh before leaning in closer to the firelight. "Tell me about it," he mumbles, his voice thick with exhaustion. He reaches for an earthen bowl nearby and dips a finger in, then rubs it over his face as if seeking relief from fatigue. You smile faintly at this small gesture of self-care, remembering that despite all their training and discipline, even the toughest legionaries need moments like these to simply be human. In your mind's eye, you see the faces of others scattered around the camp, other friends who share similar stories of endless vigilance and quiet camaraderie. The weight of responsibility feels heavier now as you realize that what lies ahead is not just a quest for knowledge, but also an opportunity to forge bonds stronger than steel. These secrets could bring glory or shame, truth or deceit, but they will certainly test the very essence of trust among comrades who have known each other since childhood. With renewed determination, you pull out another scroll from your satchel and begin unrolling it carefully onto a nearby rock. The parchment seems to hum with hidden energy as you lay it flat before you. It is adorned with intricate symbols that seem almost alive under the flickering light of the fire, symbols that hold the key to unlocking one secret. As you focus on these strange signs, your mind races through possible interpretations and potential outcomes. Each symbol could lead down different paths, one path toward enlightenment, another veiled in mystery. There is no telling which direction will prove most fruitful until you begin deciphering them. A soft creak from the entrance to the camp breaks the spell of concentration that has enveloped both of you. Both your eyes snap towards the tent flap as it slowly lifts upward. The light outside is dim, but enough for you to make out a figure standing just inside, the shadowy outline of Marcus himself. "Centurion," you whisper softly, rising from your stool and bowing slightly out of respect. Lucius follows suit, though his movements are slower due to the lingering effects of fatigue. Marcus steps fully into the firelight, his expression grave yet filled with purpose. "I need a word with both of you," he says gravely. His voice cuts through the stillness like a knife, drawing your attention away from your scrolls and back towards this moment that promises something more than just another task. With steady resolve, you prepare yourself for what promises to be another challenging yet rewarding day in your quest to uncover 3 secrets that survived a century of silence, secrets that may finally shed light on some of history's darkest chapters. With a deep breath and a silent prayer for clarity, you stepped out into the morning chill that clung to the ancient stone corridors of your fortress-like quarters. The day before had been marked by an eerie silence. Not even the usual cacophony of legionaries setting up their camps or sharpening their swords provided any distraction from the weight of the secrets you were about to uncover. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of orange and red, you made your way towards the heart of the fortress where the archives lay hidden. The air was thick with dust and the musty scent of old parchment, a tangible reminder that this place had witnessed countless moments of triumph and despair over centuries. You entered the dimly lit room through an iron door adorned with intricate engravings that seemed to shift as you approached, some whispered tales of ancient magic or clever engineering. The walls were lined with shelves upon shelves of leather-bound books, each one a treasure trove of knowledge waiting to be deciphered. You picked up the first volume, feeling its cold weight in your hand and flipping through the yellowed pages filled with cryptic texts. The day's mission was not just about uncovering secrets, but understanding them, a task that required more than mere intelligence. It demanded patience, persistence, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. As you delved deeper into the archives, you encountered references to invisible armor in several historical documents. This term had been used sparingly throughout history, often in conjunction with tales of gods or legendary heroes. Your heart raced as you discovered an old journal belonging to Marcus Valerius, a former centurion who had served during the height of Roman power. The pages were filled with meticulous notes and diagrams that hinted at some groundbreaking discovery he made while serving on one of Rome's most notorious campaigns. His writing was careful yet infused with excitement, almost as if he foresaw the impact his findings could have. Marcus described an experiment involving a mysterious substance, so light it seemed almost ethereal, but possessed formidable protective properties when applied to any surface. He had tested this on himself and several others, noting that those who were coated in what came to be known as Etherium experienced no physical damage despite being repeatedly struck by both sword and arrow. As you read further, details began to emerge about the broader context of Etherium's development. It appeared to have been discovered accidentally during mining operations deep within Mount Vesuvius, where workers noticed that certain materials taken from specific veins were not only lighter than air, but also incredibly resistant to harm when used in armor or protective gear. However, its discovery was shrouded in mystery and controversy. Some believed it was a gift from the gods, a divine favor bestowed upon Rome during times of need. Others claimed it was the result of sacrificial rituals performed by an unknown cult hidden within the mountains. Still, others dismissed such notions as fanciful tales told to quell fears. Despite its origins being mired in legend and myth, Marcus emphasized that Etherium was not just another tool or weapon. Instead, it represented a fundamental shift in how wars were fought, a concept far ahead of its time. Its invisibility rendered traditional tactics obsolete, forcing armies to adapt their strategies entirely. The more you read, the clearer your mission became. Not only did you need to identify and secure these secrets, but also understand them fully enough to apply this knowledge practically, perhaps even use it against those who sought to misuse such power for their own ends. The path ahead was fraught with danger. Adversaries would undoubtedly try to steal or destroy evidence of Etherium's existence. With renewed resolve, you closed the journal and placed it back on its shelf, knowing that today marked only the beginning of an epic quest, one that promised not just knowledge, but possibly salvation for countless lives caught in the brutal daily reality of life within Rome's legions. Tonight you've traveled through a misty dawn where the soldiers' breakfast was but a whisper of barley and water, through shadows that spoke of silent nights when the legion lost its voice, in distant fires where sandaled feet knew secrets too profound to speak aloud, across tides going out, marking the day a simple tool failed and altered their fates. Each step led down paths of shared silence, bound by fate, yet boundless. What connects it all is this: the relentless cycle of daily struggle, both seen and unseen, that shaped these men into something more than just soldiers. The collective memory of their silent toil forms a tapestry woven through time, each thread holding stories of survival and loss. If you'd like to keep exploring, you can gently tap like and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey. And if you feel awake enough, leave a comment and share where in the world you're listening from. As you drift towards sleep, you don't need to hold onto any of this. Let it sink below your thoughts into quiet depths. Let the dark and quiet take over until all that remains is peace. In memory, time stretches like an eternal river. In silence, patience waits with the earth's enduring grace.